Hello and happy pagan new year. A full moon in Taurus rocked the earth today, resetting reality for the new era. And here's the clincher. You ain't seen nothing yet. Keep streaming for Namaste Today Live. Hello, my earthly neighbors. Welcome to Namaste Today Live. My name is Sensei Christopher Witecki, a cosmic ambassador here to teach you and coach you and inspire you into the most serious joy you've ever experienced. We are streaming tonight live on YouTube, Facebook, X.com, Instagram, and even LinkedIn. If you're in our chat room tonight, please say hello to your brothers and sisters, your cosmic cousins, and tell us where you are from and what your astrology sign is. Let me tell you, this week coming ahead is going to be a little intense, my friends. We're now going to move into a tremendous amount of transformation. Our headlines this week: a new devotion to what we call the ultimate multiverse, completely transforming your life as you see now. Pluto enters into Aquarius. It's the dawn of the age of Aquarius. And Sag enters into the sun enters into Sagittarius. What you once believed is now thrown out the window. And later tonight on ASTRO MINGLE, meditation teacher and meditation music composer Jason Stevenson is here to talk about the importance of guided meditation and what he experienced in his 30s, which he called some of the darkest days of his life. But first, let's take a look at the week's moods and your zodiac weathers, which will be done now manually tonight. All right, do we have any groovy music there, Adam? Oh, that's kind of cosmic. Oh, it's the action music. Awesome. So yeah, we've had a heck of a week, folks, with boundaries and whatnot. And so we're going to dive into a manual zodiac weather tonight, starting with Saturday. So this week's zodiac weather, by the way, is from Saturday, November 16th to Friday, November 29th. Over the weekend, you're going to accept your new terms when it comes to what your life is going to change. And we start with, on Saturday, cloudy with a chance of storms. On Saturday, step 24 rules the day. This is actually the step number of the full moon apex that we experienced this late afternoon. The moon will move out of Taurus into Gemini, so it'll be a bit more light on the second half of the day. And what you are protecting on this day is your peace and trying to innovate faith. Also, Venus will square the nodes, which means there's a shift in how you think and where you move. And the sun will oppose Uranus at the end of the day. So again, expect the unexpected, especially if you've not done your spiritual work. On Sunday, it's cloudy and recalculating. Step 25 means that this is a Neptune-ruled day. Expect some divine inspiration. What you are protecting is your divine calling, and you are reframing your action items and putting them into a new sequence. With the moon in Gemini, you're either processing deep or communicating your intentions. Taking a look at the 5-day weekday forecast of the upcoming week. Over the course of the week, we're going to wrap up our sun in Scorpio, which means we're now going to go through a transformation. This is the beginning of the ultimate multiverse. Let's drill down. On Monday, it's cloudy and crabby. Step 26 means Saturn rules the day. So people are trying to protect their leadership and, probably more importantly to them, their power. But you're thinking through the plot points step by step and understanding what it takes and the cost of doing it. Mercury will oppose Jupiter, which will bring a unique balance between thoughts and beliefs. And the sun trines Neptune, which means there's a possibility for people going over the cliff when it comes to not being in touch with reality. On Tuesday, it's sunny and maturing. Step 27 means that Mars rules the day. It's a day to move forward. And what you're protecting is your integration and your transformation. The moon is now in Cancer, so feelings are high and probably intense. And you might have to affirm your healing in the process. That will also come from Mercury trining Chiron, sort of affirming. But this is the day, folks, wait for the drumbeat, where Pluto enters into Aquarius, the day we've been waiting for the entire year. On Wednesday, it's sunny and shifty. Step 28, Scorpio, means that the Earth rules the day. So this is a day where you are manifesting the multiverse. And what you're protecting on this day is your evolution and your change. This is the ultimate timeline shift, like one you have never experienced in your life. The moon will move from Cancer into Leo, so that means the day will get gradually more and more loving. On Thursday, it's cloudy with a chance of storms. Step 29, Scorpio, means that Chiron is ruling the day. This is a day for the potential of grand mastery. What you are protecting on this day is your own re-evolution, and you're realizing that you belong right here where you are. The moon in Leo inspires creatively, and then later in the day, the sun enters into Sagittarius, and then the sun sextiles Pluto. Quite a drum roll for the entrance of Pluto and the sun. And then on Friday, you are basically feeling sunny, but also a little vacated. Step 0 means Pluto rules the day. And this is the first Pluto ruled day since Pluto's moved into Aquarius. You are now going to believe in new beginnings, a new hope, and you'll start to edit your purpose. The moon will move from Leo into Virgo, which means things will get kind of dicey and detailed by the end of the day. Plus, on top of that, Venus sextiles Saturn, making responsibility be on your shoulders, and Mars trines the nodes, also pushing for you to take responsibility. Overall, it's going to be a good beginning to a transformative Sagittarius season. All right, folks, thank you for that. And we do ask you, though, if you are watching on YouTube, please be kind and do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, if you're on Facebook, X, Twitter, or Instagram, please also subscribe. On YouTube, hit the bell button so that you're notified. And if you don't mind, everyone, please hit the like button, no matter what platform you're on, so that the systems can understand that we have the answer. Namaste Today Live is sponsored tonight by a light worker from our audience and her creation. It's called Bubblez, Love's Drag and the Power of Family. Directed by lightworker Jackie Schulman, this is a documentary that follows the life of a drag queen who is also a father in the city of New Orleans. And we're going to be showing you the movie trailer tonight because Jackie frankly needs your help. But before we talk about that, Adam, can we roll the trailer?
Work so hard and we're not able to do it.
Some people don't have nothing to live for other than that. Drag is amazing. It saves so many lives. It's like I don't know what the gay community would do without it. I mean, I've come to the conclusion that this is definitely an assignment sent from God. So until he says I'm done, I'm not done. When I get my place, that's my dream. You know, have all the bells and whistles you need to have an amazing drag show. So it is really hard, but family can overcome anything.
Excellent. It's a good still. We might have just experienced our first. That was the first trailer we tried to roll on this platform, and we're not quite sure how it went. So we'll try re-rolling it again later. This is us, working with new tech and also new features. But we're really happy to have our first feature film sponsor here at Namaste Today Live. And the reason why it's sponsored tonight is because Jackie and the crew need your help. They're raising money now to finish the post-production and release this film sometimes next year. I can tell you I've seen this trailer in different parts, and this is an authentic film that brings out the humanness of humans, really. And I think it's a great departure. It's great to see lightworkers out there. And basically, she's going to be launching a campaign, a fundraiser campaign, and this is the QR code where you can go learn all about it. There's prizes for different donors and things. There's a special party going on in March, which I will be there, by the way, in New Orleans. And Jackie is a wonderful person. You're going to get to know her over time. She'll be on it. She'll be on the show in the future when the film is ready to go. We'll also try rerunning this trailer again a little bit later to see if it was just something going on funky with the planets. All right then, friends. Thank you. Please support Jackie and Bubblez. And without further ado, let's take a look at the week's planets and transits. Holy moly, you can cut the gravity with a knife, actually more like a buzzsaw. Energetically, it has been a very powerful week. and we're just getting started, I'm afraid to say. What we are going through is the final timeline shift, the ultimate multiverse, as we like to call it. Let's talk about the timeline first, and I'm just going to summarize real quickly because I've talked about this all year, and I'm frankly happy to stop talking about it. This has been a year in 2024 of shifting out of your personal karma with yourself. Now, that may sound like a simple idea, but no matter what age you are, it's taken your entire life to get to this point. So if you started age 5, that's how much karma you had, right? So we all have been going through it together as a collective. Karma is, for lack of a better definition, memory. Memory of traumas in past lives, memories of things going wrong, and they're all built in our subconscious. So since beginning of March, or this March, Saturn in Pisces in a certain spot, the first decan, has really allowed us to take responsibility for ending karma we have with ourselves. And if you don't know, the karma with yourself is the most important karma because your life is all about you. Everything you create is about you. Everything that happens to you is about you. So when you get you right, you get life right, which is wonderful. But getting it right was not easy, was it, friends? And really, as we moved into Scorpio, we've had to make some hard line draws. And in some cases, a lot of separations in certain working environments and people, amongst family members, amongst friends. Not because there's necessarily, hard feelings, but mostly because each party is realizing that they're on a different planet. They have different belief structure. And this is beyond the belief structure of two politicians. This is the belief structure, really, of the core of what reality is. I've spoken to it many times, but what this comes down to is there's a crop of people on the earth who believe that we are connected to the earth energetically and vibrationally, and that earth is this magical music box that manifests for us a version of ourself outside of ourself. And that's what reality is. That's the idea. Therefore, anything in your reality is really created by you, much like when you dream and you dream about friends or you dream about situations, you're still dreaming about you because the dreamer is making the dream. That's what we believe here at Serious Joy, that you create your own reality, that you are the dreamer, and that you create your own dream. Now, the other part of this divide is that there's an absolute truth out there. Some absolute truth, where that absolute truth is from the Bible or the absolute truth is from science, and that absolute truth is either followed by you or not followed by you. Therefore, human beings don't have the free will to create their reality. Human beings are trying to survive the reality they were dealt. And that's a different storyline. And that storyline comes with different consequences, such as stress, high blood pressure, and dis-ease. So what this represents in Scorpio is the final line being drawn. And that final line is being drawn with yourself and being drawn out in the world. This year, this week, see, I'm having timeline shifts like crazy. I'm all over the map with time, which is why we're actually running late today. Not because I didn't have a time right, because I basically studied for the wrong thing. So if you're experiencing some weird timeline dropouts, you're not alone, by the way. It's just kind of a weird cosmic conscious thing where suddenly you thought one thing and something else is happening, all sorts of things like that. But those types of symptoms, I think we can expect going forward here, because as we move through this week, and we'll talk about it, we're going to be cutting the final cord between us and the old story and the old narrative, or the old boundary structure, technically, is what we're cutting the cords from, and starting to move down that new boundary structure, or for some people, starting to descend as things get worse. I feel like if people choose, let's put it this way, you don't have to follow what I say. You have to follow, but don't follow what you used to say, is what I'm trying to say. As long as you are at least adopting a different philosophy than the one you had prior, I feel it's inevitable you'll find your truth. If you are doubling down that you are right and the world is wrong, or that you are here to prove something, or that you're here to use reality to describe, to figure out who you are versus going within to figure out who you are, I think you're going to find yourself having a real hard time as we go forward. That is just the nature of working against nature. And what nature is telling us right now in this particular moment in our era is that this is the most profound time of humanity, the most profound. I would say there are 2 points of humanity that have been the most profound. One was the fall of Atlantis and Mu, which is an advanced civilization 26,000 years ago. And the second is this time, where basically that higher vibration of human souls, souls in a human body, are now allowed to go to a higher realm of energy for the first time since the fall of Atlantis. That's really what the Age of Aquarius is, as far as astrological terms are concerned, is that it is the time when we raise the vibration. Literally, Aquarius is two waves, is a glyph, which is the form of frequency, right? And frequency is all sorts of things, but mostly it's what you do frequently. So, if you frequently beat up on yourself, you've created dark frequency. If you frequently love yourself, you create a high vibration frequency. And as we move into the age of Aquarius, or at least the dawn of the dawn, I personally believe the age of Aquarius will be in about 75 years or so. I don't know the exact, but I feel like that's when it is going to be officiated. And officiated means that everyone's on the same page. Everyone agrees the world is round, for instance. That was a new era at that time. So we come to these conclusions as a species, and that's what we're on the cusp of right now, are these conclusions. So the sun in Scorpio this last week, which happened to be set up today, the final line was drawn with the full moon in Taurus. I can say the energy today has been heavy for me, and I'm a Taurus, so maybe that's why it was very heavy. Maybe because the full moon was actually conjoining Uranus, which calls for, whenever the universe calls for you to go higher, you feel low at first. You feel lower. You feel dragged down by that energy. And so I have been energetically just feeling sort of low, but I think what I'm feeling is the universe pulling me up high, and the heavy parts of myself that I haven't gotten rid of are still weighing on me. You too may have things weighing on you, but don't worry, that's what next week is going to be about, cutting those things that weigh on us so that we can enlighten ourselves and allow ourselves to go to a higher frequency and operate every day into a higher frequency. If you're confused about what higher frequency means as far as the experience is concerned, it's literally when you feel higher. When you feel higher, more joyful, more loving, more carefree, less burden, no stress, no fear. Basically, these lower frequencies of life that are difficult, we hit low spots. The enlightenment simply is that we get rid of the low spots. We start to get rid of anger. We start to get rid of violence. We start to get rid of these extreme expressions of low frequency and emotions that human beings did not have the tools to cope with. But we are gaining the tools. And I think Serious Joy is one of those tools, and astrology is a tool, and human design is a tool. These are all tools that are coming through people individually and collectively to help us manage these frequencies, and most importantly, the transformation from one to another. If you feel like this is a real shifty lifetime, or that this is really hard, you're right. From what I understand and what I meditate and connect to in my guides, human beings have never gone through this. We have never had to pull ourselves up consciously from low vibration to high vibration. We're either born high or born low. So this is a process of us really learning about our power and learning about how we are connected to the universe. Therefore, it is the awakening of the truth of who we are and who we are multidimensionally. And so I feel like, it's going to be weird, of course. And don't expect to understand it. Don't expect for your mind to comprehend it. The mind cannot comprehend something the mind has not witnessed prior, or at least read about, right? And there is nothing like that out there. So I would say, as we go into this new era, my personal advice to every one of you watching is to give yourself a break. This is a complicated moment. Just like, let's say, the people had to jump and flee from Atlantis sinking, or the people, in Pompeii with a volcano, or, any of the tragedies that have happened on Earth. No one had an instruction book for how to deal with it. Everyone coped with it the best they could. And I think the best healing part here, and the biggest learning lesson of Scorpio, is to give yourself the time and space, which is what Scorpio is about. Give yourself the time and space in order to process. Give yourself time and space before you make promises. That's been one of my big lessons in the last 3 weeks. I'm making too many promises before I really check in on myself and make sure that I have it in me. So I think the transition itself is actually pretty draining. And I think it's full of all sorts of problems from the past. And so it could also, in some regards, be kind of a nightmare, because you have to have each of these issues come up for you to say to yourself, hey, this means nothing anymore. It's not affecting me. So it keeps coming up until it no longer affects you and no longer brings your vibration down or into anger or into others, negative qualities that we know as humans to be part of the dark ages, right? So without further ado, let's take a look at the planets and transits and see on more of a nano perspective of what is going on. And that means I have to find my right set of notes. Here we go. All right, so looking at the planets and transits, the sun is in Scorpio this week and goes from step 24, which is basically Saturday and today, to step 1, Sagittarius. So from step 24, this is the step where you are basically accepting. That's what this full moon was. This full moon was twofold today, and it continues energetically through the weekend, actually. The full moon says, hey, I accept where I feel I don't belong. Feel is 2 and belong is 4. I feel where I don't belong, and I feel where I do belong. At minimum, you should feel where you don't belong. And that is you feeling that you don't belong tied to, let's say, a reality where, it's going to be a polluted, toxic environment. You don't belong to a reality where there's all sorts of things in our food that make us sicker. You don't belong to the reality of, there's cheating from big corporations where other human citizens actually can't cheat like that. And so they take the hardest consequence. There's all sorts of things that we have endured, particularly in the last 25 years, that you can probably add to your list of you don't feel you belong there, period, right? You don't feel like you belong there. The full moon was saying, basically demonstrating, probably through emotion, so the parts you don't belong with were very heavy. And I experienced some very heavy, deep heaviness today and yesterday too. My soul's kind of worn out from it, frankly, just all the emotion that's poured through me because it was tied to family and tied to things that are very dear to my heart. So we had this part of the full moon, the dark side of the moon, where we were getting rid of what we don't belong with. Well, as we go into the weekend and we go into step 25, the sun will conjoin oppose Uranus, at step 25 Taurus. And what that means is once we're clear on the yeses or nos, then we connect to our higher self in heaven or higher self spiritually. That's what Uranus at 25 is doing, is trying to raise our values to spirituality. Raise values to spirituality at 25. I would say that values on earth are not spiritual for the most part, but I know the population breakdown, there's still a lot of people who are, of course, religious and whatnot. But more importantly, Uranus at 25 indicates your spiritual destiny, your spiritual calling. So as the sun opposes Uranus, which will be on Sunday, we talked about that, you will then begin to see the light, if you will, as to what your spiritual path is. And by the way, spiritual path doesn't mean easy, all right? It's usually something the soul hasn't done before. It's usually something the soul's been egging to do for a long time. There's a lot of impatience when you find that answer. There's a lot of questions when you find that answer. And for those who refuse to look, I do think it will sort of find you. I think if you're a person, if you have friends in your sphere of influence who just don't pay attention to these things, which is their right, they'll find that some sort of lesson comes crashing into their life. They attract a lesson that embodies the truth of what their destiny is. That is over the weekend, right? Pretty spiritual heavy. Then as we go into next week, step 26, actually we're still in the sun here. As we go into step 26, we commit on Monday. Step 27, we act on that change. We start to transform ourselves there. The sun is semi-sextiling the galactic center, so we're tying into the Milky Way. And then on Wednesday, 28, we try to hold this new reality together. 29 on Thursday, we get tested on whether or not we can hold on to it. And then Friday, boom, we're in a new timeline. So you could say that this is a transformation of timelines that's really happening. Now, I skipped this earlier, so we'll kind of say it now. The theme of the week is the ultimate multiverse shift. What we are doing is moving into a singular or duality into a multiple reality. And that's what the sun is doing with all these steps. Each step, the heart is choosing the old way or the new way. And the new way is the ultimate multiverse shift, where we recognize multiverse is that everyone is creating their own reality that makes a universe. To do this, our subplot of the week is that we have to shift into a deeper faith. A deeper faith means that, you have to go to those times in life where you were certain things were going to go wrong and they didn't. And you realize that some force had you, some force protected you. And so for us to go through this transition, you've really got to shift to your faith. That's like being blindfolded and told that everything will work out. That's basically what's going to happen. So the sun moving through these degrees is really calling for you to do both of these themes, to realize that life is whatever you make it, that it's a multiverse. There are many perspectives and no perspective is wrong. There's no such thing as wrong. In an art classroom, for instance, in an art room, anything a teacher, tells you, hey, go paint something pretty, you come back with a stick drawing, that's not wrong if it's pretty in the eyes of the beholder, right? The same is true with us in lifetimes. Pluto and Aquarius represents that our lifetimes will also be experienced like art. Each of us will have our own lifetime, our own reality, and we will eventually be as a culture in a place where we don't force our reality onto their reality. So the sun is where our heart is, and that's what our heart is doing, is shifting into the ultimate multiverse. Now, moving on to Sagittarius, or moving ahead to Sagittarius, I should say, our mind is already way ahead this week, Mercury moves from step 17 to step 22. It is starting to slow down now for its retrograde coming up. So it's, it can really move fast, but that's not many step numbers for a week. That means that at the beginning of the week, we are going to commit to a new philosophy. And by the end of the week, we'll actually be at the Mercury retrograde degree 22, which is how does this new philosophy, 17, actually transform my future, 22, or the story of my future. At the same time in Sagittarius, we of course have the sun entering in from 0 to 1. The sun will end up on 1 by Saturday. And this will be really where you put your foot down and your heart saying, we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. This is not the story we were born to. This is the story we were born to live. And because we've never played it before, we might feel a stranger in our own lifetime or in our own life. So don't be surprised if that happens. Now, overall in Capricorn, some interesting things. Pluto is at step 29 until it's not. Pluto moves into Aquarius this week. That's probably the biggest headline there is. For one, it's because Pluto will never be in Capricorn again for the rest of your life. The last time it was in Capricorn was the 1700s, right? So this is done. We are done and done. That means that in these days leading up to it, Pluto enters Aquarius on Tuesday, by the way, you might have some heck of a test when it comes to holding your ground, holding what you believe in, staying true to your path, not allowing someone else to debunk or to take away your authority, and holding the space for you to be the determiner of your own destiny, and that you'll decide for yourself what is fair, what is not, and what you'll do or not do. Now, this is the setup, of course, for the revolution coming ahead, re-evolution, I like to say. In the same sense, we also have Venus in Capricorn. She's just cooking at speeds that I can't calculate. She goes from step 5 to step 13 this week, and that's Capricorn. That means that you now begin to accept the new terms of your new power structure within you. From 5 to 9 degrees is really the one within you. And then after you've established a new power structure within you, then you start to question the power structure just outside of you. And so Venus is preparing us this week for those power shifts. Now, looking to the moon, just to give the moon some examples, the moon this week starts in Taurus. Obviously, we have a full moon in Taurus today, and that will continue into Saturday, and then moves into Gemini for late Saturday, Sunday, and part of Monday. So that means that through those days, we're doing a lot of processing. Of course, the moon will cross over Jupiter in Gemini, so there'll be some sort of a learning point there where you realize that you have a new belief, and you realize you have the new belief because you can feel it's true. The moon's in the sign. You can feel that this is true. Maybe you can't prove it, but you can feel it. Then come Monday, late Monday, the moon moves into Cancer, and that means that we have to sort of catch up with our feelings. So I am predicting late Monday, Tuesday, and part of Wednesday to be emotionally a little challenging, because what you're having to do is draw those final boundaries, stay the course of those final boundaries. And as you're trying to stay the course of the boundaries, you're feeling hypersensitive. You're feeling the past. You're picking up on your neighbors. You're picking up on other people. So your emotions are sort of scattered during that time of the moon in Cancer. But in essence, you're probably also processing the important feelings that you have to process in order to graduate from this old reality. Truth be told, it's our attachments to reality that keep us in a given reality. And those attachments most often happen emotionally. We get emotionally attached to this person, emotionally attached to our hormones by going through flip-out phases. We become emotionally attached to doing nothing, or even emotionally attached to watching TV. So I feel like those will be probably the most difficult days as far as emotionally, which is, again, Monday night, all of Tuesday, and part of Wednesday, because we're going to have to really draw the line and end our emotional attachments to the old world. Even victims of violence or victims of a horrible thing have a weird attachment to that, which is called, of course, trauma, but they're also attached to it. They don't want to let it go, even though it's a bad memory. So sometimes trauma creates long-term attachments, and that's going to be part of the emotional work this week. Things really lighten up, though, on Wednesday as far as emotions concerned. The moon will move into Leo, and so you'll feel your love for yourself again. You might feel that love for yourself through pride of something you've accomplished, or you might feel that love in yourself just because. But whatever the case is, that is the sun coming out after the rain. And so I am predicting that energetically, emotionally, Wednesday night, most of Thursday, and certainly the beginning of Friday, when the sun's in Sagittarius, to be more joyful than not. Now, moving over to Leo, Mars is in Leo, of course. And Mars in Leo, let me get the graphic there in a second, I'm sure. Mars in Leo indicates that our ego is working really hard to love ourselves, or not, okay? I say or not because Mars in Leo could be all based on the Mars. Remember, Mars is our ego. And so our ego right now is really conversating with our heart, with Mars in Leo. This week, Mars moves from 3 degrees to 5 degrees, or step 3 to 5, which means that you're going to be changing your behavior as it relates to your believing in yourself and love, where you belong with yourself when it comes to love, and where you think of yourself as far as love is concerned. So Mars in Leo really stirring the pot. Now, keep in mind that Mars will retrograde, and Mars retrogrades on December 6th. It will stay retrograded until February 23rd. It always retrogrades for about 40 days. And we've already begun to analyze this at our headquarters at SeriousJoy.com, realizing what's really going to happen under the hood there. I feel like once we have gone into the multiverse, we do this deep, deep soul search with Mars and Leo about what's really worth chasing after anyways inside of us. And so, I would personally recommend right now that you try to lighten the load for yourself and not put too many expectations on yourself from December 6th to February 23rd, because in that retrograde of Mars, you're just not going to feel like doing new things and you're not going to be sure what to do. Now, Mars doesn't just stay in Leo during that retrograde. It will also go back to Cancer, all the way back to step 17 Cancer. And so we'll not only be reevaluating how to love ourselves, but we'll be really evaluating how to nurture ourselves so that we can love ourselves, right? I always say a baby that feels bad cannot play. And so we have to also focus on feeling good so the play can come out. Now, moving to Aries, we have the North Node and Chiron in Aries, as always. Seems like that's always the case. The North Node at 5 degrees all week says to be mindful of what you say to yourself and to be mindful of what you think before you act. So to really think before you cross the street is what the North Node at 5 is saying. But it's also saying that that thought ought to be what determines motivation right now. So be motivated by thought, be motivated by words. It won't always be that. It will go to the step 4 where you'll be motivated by where you belong. Step 3 based on where you're motivated, what you believe. But right now it's really about what you're thinking. And remember, we're doing a lot of work to think differently in many different forms across the galaxy right now, including a Mercury retrograde coming up. So at this moment, our mind does know where we need to go when it comes to our inner self. Chiron at 19 all week means that we are still healing our capacity to heal. So 19 is manifestation and Chiron is healing. So we're healing our capacity to manifest our healing, basically. Now, for most people, I think this is fractional. In other words, people have usually a problem with one part of their life, but not others. So when I say that, please don't get worried. You have everything it takes to fix and heal yourself. And that's the whole point, I think. Chiron is teaching us how we can do it. Now, moving on to Pisces. In Pisces, we have Saturn and Neptune. Saturn this week is at step 12, but the big headline is that Saturn will station direct on Friday. Stationing direct means that you have learned everything you need to learn in the past chapter. So, as Saturn had retrograded, it was showing you, hey, look at this, see how you failed this, see how you were not in your alignment here. And although humiliating at times and feeling kind of defeatist, really, it's just showing you there's no consequence. The consequence comes once Saturn goes direct. So once Saturn goes direct on Friday, you could say your karma clock is now ticking. And that means that if you repeat something you know better than to do, it will have a higher consequence or will be supported less. That's another way I see it. I notice that when planets move on to different signs or whatever, we ultimately shift our focus to those signs and we let the old sign, where it was, kind of fall into its natural place. So with Saturn in this place of 12, it means a new story. And so once we move forward with that new story onto 13, that will be the story. So the energy of the planet helps us to pull up this potential. Saturn at 12 direct does mean that there's going to be a new story now, a new karmic story. So maybe the old story was everyone picked on you, or you were always the one that never got picked, right? Whatever the case may be, that's not the case anymore. So it is time to let bygones be bygones. And you could say you have until Friday in order to forgive and forget and allow yourself to move on. Most importantly, it's time to be compassionate. And if you don't know, compassion is a simple word. It's okay. That's 2 words, actually. It's okay. It's okay is the most powerful, compassionate phrase I've ever heard, where no matter what you're worried about, you just say it's okay, because that's what God universe would say as well. Now, Neptune, get my sides confused. Neptune is a steady step 27 all week, and that means that we are officially moving ahead with our new destiny, but it's retrograded, which means we're looking to the past in order to look ahead. Then we have, of course, Taurus, which is quite relevant, and we have Uranus in Taurus. Again, the sun will oppose Uranus on Saturday, so that'll be a real coming to Jesus. You'll realize most likely that you've got to change some boundaries if you're going to elevate what you create on the planet. If you're going to create crystal cities or high vibration communities, then you're going to have the boundaries necessary with yourself to pull that off. As I mentioned earlier in the show, if you have for some reason not done any of your soul work, this opposition on Saturday could mean a breakdown of some sorts, breakdown in health, breakdown in job, breakdown in communication, which will then reveal what needs to happen through that experience or that exercise. But overall, Uranus is a steady step 25. Step 25 is God consciousness. And so you could say there is currently an escalator that leads straight to heaven. It's Uranus in Taurus right now. Over in Gemini, Jupiter is in Gemini, and this week goes from step 19 and retrogrades back to step 18. This is a very important step change because Jupiter at 19 has been saying, let's change our beliefs. That's what Jupiter is, our belief structure. Let's change our belief structure about what we're supposed to manifest, 19. So we changed how we thought. We maybe changed words, phrases, maybe swapped out entire chapters of the book that we're writing. And now Jupiter will go back to step 18. Step 18 does mean now it's time to think differently and create philosophy and beliefs around the right thing to do. So don't be surprised if suddenly you're worried about knowing the right thing to do. That's Jupiter moving at 18 degrees. It's sort of facilitating that vibration, really calling for everyone to second question and make sure that they're doing the right thing. 18 reveals what the right thing is, to be committed, 8, to your heart, right? So good. And then finally in Libra, we have the South Node and we have old Black Moon Lilith. Now, the South Node is at 5 degrees all week, which means we're moving away from a dialogue we held with ourselves. Maybe we always called ourselves stupid or always, took the harder path or made ourselves prove things. Different mind games that we've developed over the years, in essence. And the South Node is saying, get rid of those mind games with yourself. They don't serve whatsoever. Catch yourself in the act and let them go. But Black Moon Lilith is actually going to be a bit difficult this week as she goes from step 14 to step 15. And that means that this week we do face all of our karmic fears and worries and troubles as it relates to long-term relationships, daily relationships, relationships that happen in the moment. So this can be the relationship you have to a person. This can be a relationship you have to, a food. This can be a relationship you have to gambling, okay? But whatever fears you have around relationships, you will see them resurrected. Now, what I mean by that is that you will see something that looks just like your worst fears. And maybe it is your worst fears, but the difference between this is your worst fears won't happen. That's one thing I've learned about Black Moon Lilith. It doesn't happen. Now, sometimes it happens a little bit or fractionally because you have to actually get over the trauma of when it had happened. So that said, any fears you have about relationships this week to people, places, or things, and any traumas will come to the surface. And I will report that I'm already experiencing that right now in certain relationships. It's just coming up for clearing. But the difference between now and the past is that now I'm not going to linger on stuff. I'm ready to move on, close the door, and go forward with my own destiny. So in the past, I would have tried to bring them with me, and they would have tried to they would have tried to keep me where they were. And I think that's the difference I'm seeing now, is that we're no longer interfering with each other's free will. It might be a difficult pill to swallow, but we're starting to slowly wake up to the idea that different people have different beliefs, and we don't necessarily have to make people believe in what we believe in to believe it. If you need another person to agree with you, you're not really believing it. That's why you're asking for the evidence from the dream that you are creating up in heaven. All right, friends, I think now is a good time. First of all, before we go on to our tea time horoscopes, we're going to steep some tea. I want to run a different trailer now for Bubblez, and this is a trailer made specifically from Jackie herself. Let's roll that and then have our tea time horoscopes.
I am running a drag family called the House of Alexander. As the mother, all I can do is say what I would prefer my kids to do.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Shulman. I am director and producer of the Bubblez documentary. I've also been part of the Serious Joy family. I'm a Step 29 Gemini, and I'm really, really excited to finally share my Diamond Egg project with everyone. I've been working on this for 3 years now, and I think it's a beautiful, universal story about love, family, chosen and biological, and having a support structure around you to follow your dreams. I am starting my Kickstarter next week. Even if you can't give money, as long as you're following us on social media, telling a friend, joining our email group, I think this is a great time to come together and to really support one another in our creative endeavors. And I'm so glad to have you guys along on my journey.
All right. Without further ado, it's time for our tea time. Hello, friends. Welcome to Tea Time. This is the portion of the show where we talk about individual horoscopes for all 12 signs. You should know that we actually cut these out of the show and go live with them on Tuesdays. It's a great way to introduce people to Serious Joy, for instance, and what we offer, or if nothing else, just to help your friends, right? Even if they disagree with the horoscope, they thought about it. And that's the first step, really, is to think about stuff, to bring it to your awareness. Really, awakening is about bringing things to our awareness. Well, what's coming to our awareness this week, as I mentioned, is the coming of the multiverse. This multiverse, I think, can be really sort of encapsulated by the idea of Pluto in Aquarius. You know, it used to be thought that, for instance, electrons were always existing all the time. Scientists thought they always existed all the time. Then somewhere along the line, I don't have all the details, we realized that electrons blink in and out of reality. They leave and come back. Okay, it's been scientifically proven that they leave and come back. That's a multiverse. That is not a universe, una as in one. It's a multiverse. There's multiple things happening, multiple laws happening at the same time. And so we are realizing that, that two things can happen at once, right? Another interesting experiment I was like with multiverse has to do with the old scientific experience about whether it's a particle or a wave. And what they realized in this experiment was that it was determined by who was looking at the experiment. Some people who looked at the experiment saw a particle. Some people who looked at the experiment saw it as a wave. And the walking away theory was that somehow human beings were connected to whether or not the particle presented as a particle or the wave presented as a wave. This, my friends, is the new reality, this idea that we are connected to reality itself. So for this week's horoscopes, I'm just going to give you sort of a summary of the changes going on from the 10,000 foot perspective. First, I'll talk about and remind you about where you are committing to leaving your universe for a multiverse. That will be the completion of the sun in Scorpio. So we'll talk about where that completion is and what you have to pay attention to. Then I'll speak to Pluto moving into Aquarius. A big deal. In fact, it deserves its own show. And we'll probably talk about it soon. We do have some shows and specials around it. But Pluto in Aquarius does mean, once and for all, that God has commanded, or the universe has decided, that for the next 24 consecutive years, you will ascend vibrationally in that part of your life. In other words, you'll always go to a higher and higher point of view, every year as the Pluto moves up through the degrees. So for all 12 signs today, I'll talk about where your dawn of the dawn of Aquarius is, where it's playing out, and where you can expect to start ascending as soon as this week. Then I'll speak to the sun in Sagittarius, which officially happens on Friday. Actually, it moves in on Thursday night, to be honest, Thursday afternoon, but Friday's the day it is all being held by that space. And the sun in Sagittarius means that, that you now are putting your heart into a new belief about yourself. And believing differently about yourself is the beginning of the new multiverse. You have to define what the rules are. You have to define what the story is. You have to define what the challenges are and what the lessons are. And that's what the beginning of the sun in Sagittarius is. I'll then speak to the Earth in Gemini. So as we are creating in our hearts this new script for what we believe, the Earth in Gemini is then manifesting new thoughts, not new mind games, but new neural paths, if you will, and new ways of processing, new ways of approaching that. So in one area of your life, you're crafting new belief. in another area of your life, you are manifesting a new way to think about it. And as always, I'll put here to the side what sign I'm working on. And let's begin first with the Aries. Aries, you are ultimately, with the sun in Scorpio, transforming your life. So I feel that most of it has to do with comfort and things that you just don't want to do. I think that you have been held off on certain tasks in your life, which means you put up a wall and you pushed it away. And what this transformation desires and needs is that you just go ahead and jump in that pool, that you go ahead and take the cold plunge, jump in the cold water, get used to the cold water. And that's what this launch is for you. Getting yourself out of the way of your own progress is what it comes down to. Now, with Pluto in Aquarius, it means the dawn of you having to be your own friend in society. What I mean by that is when you're in the world, when you're trying to show off or demonstrate your strength or your superlatives, I'm not making fun of you when I say that. Aries are competitive by nature. They like to compete. It's fun. But I think in those times of competition or other things, you've left yourself behind. You've signed yourself up for things that you wouldn't do to your worst friend or your worst enemy. So it's time to sort of hold space with Pluto in Aquarius and say, let's just check and make sure this is for the good of me being a good friend to me. And that's what Pluto will be enforcing for you in these first degrees. The sun in Sagittarius, for you, Aries, means that you're now going to begin to believe about yourself differently. This might be you abandoning childhood things that you were told, like you'll never amount to anything, you're stupid, all you are is muscle, but you're not really strong or smart. These are kind of things that I think Aries get teased about. But the point is that your heart knows what's true. I don't think you necessarily center on that. I think most of the time you use your own strength as your rock, but now it's time to have the story play along, to have the understanding of yourself play along, the self-realization of yourself play along to your purpose. Now, with the Earth in Gemini, it means that as you manifest this new belief in yourself, you're going to have to manifest a new way of talking to yourself. The words that you use, the expressions, the little jokes, whatever they are with yourself, this is of course the silent relationship to yourself. This is sabotaging things in your life, whether you're aware of it or not, because words are powerful. They are spells. That's why they are spelled with, we spell them with letters, and that means we literally give them frequencies that actually make the frequency shift on Earth. So even if you don't say it out loud, it's still pertinent. And so as of this season, it's time to clean up your act with the way you talk to yourself. All right, moving on. Taurus. Taurus, you are wrapping up with the sun in Scorpio, your approach to relationships. And I have to say, boy, is that true. I have had a huge shift in the way I look at relationships. This is, what you feel you can tolerate, what you don't feel you can tolerate. This is also, what are you working for in a relationship? What is the goal in a relationship? What are the long-term goals in a relationship? Why do you even have relationships? These are the kind of thoughts I've been having as I've had many, many relationship changes. In fact, I'm kind of exhausted from all the changes I've had at once. Part of that's my fault because I hold on to relationships. I have Scorpio there. So it's been difficult. We've had to, God had to sort of like step on our hands to let go of the side of the wall. But we are now transforming our life by transforming our relationships. So what the astrology suggests is that Tauruses have been bounded to certain types of relationships, and it's your commitment in the relationship that's holding you back because you're committed to something that is not appropriate for you to be committed to, whatever that may be and what that means for you. So the transformation to the multiverse for you, Taurus, is that you let go of one universe way of looking at relationships, that maybe perhaps every relationship comes with a different approach based on what? Your needs and loving yourself. Now, Pluto in Aquarius is quite interesting for the Tauruses because this is actually at first your decisions about yourself. When you make decisions for yourself, when you commit to yourself, you are low vibration, is what the planets are saying. I know I am. Like I make myself work and then make myself work some more. I'm a slave driver to myself. I really do put too much on my plate and make myself do more because I thought that was the only way to get a lot done. It was a primitive way of looking at things. So I fully admit I've been primitive about the way I make decisions. I've definitely done it the hard way. You might start to see in your life, Taurus, where you've been making it too hard, where it could have been far easier, or you were just not really making the choices you belong making in the first place because they weren't coming from the heart. Now, once the sun goes into Sagittarius, Tauruses will experience another month around trust and intimacy and boundaries. It's interesting. Taurus is a step 10, and so that's 2 numbers, and they always go through something twice. They always have 2. So last month was boundaries and relationships, and now it's beliefs and boundaries, right? So boundaries comes up twice for Tauruses. They do everything twice. That's why they're so slow. People are like, they're so slow. They do everything twice. They're very thorough. So what you are going to be doing is looking at your philosophies about where you draw the lines with yourself and where that philosophy came from. And is that philosophy really reason with what your heart wants from you? So the first degrees will be whether or not you can trust yourself based on how you define trust and based on where you draw the boundaries with yourself. Again, very powerful because this sits on top of this whole year of clearing karma. With the Earth in Gemini, it means that it's now time to actually talk differently, communicate differently about your self-worth. What makes you valuable and why? What is valuable to you and what isn't valuable to you? And do you require the outer world to acknowledge your value, or can you operate independently as your own soul capital bank? These are the questions. The Earth will be helping you to change the way you think about self-worth and maybe base it on different details. Gemini. Gemini, you are, with the end of Scorpio, making a multiverse transformation of your life. So your lifestyle has been universe, not multiverse. You've lived in only one life, one lifestyle, one way of being. That's what the planets say. And so now it's time to create a multiverse of how life can go, lifestyle can go. This is how you work, to how hard you work, to what if you work in a hot climate or a cold climate. If you know the way you go to school, the way you commute. This is life, the style of our life. So Geminis will change their life by changing the style of their life. And they will ultimately realize that changing the style of their life is going to be one of the things necessary, that their life is not supporting the life they want. Ironic, but true, all right? Sometimes right under your nose. Now with Pluto in Aquarius, this is actually pretty compelling. I think one of the truths of the age of Aquarius is that Geminis must now believe in themselves on a higher level. So basically the universe is saying you're too low bandwidth with the way you believe in yourself. Maybe you believe in yourself from the awards you have on your bookshelf from high school. Maybe you don't believe in yourself based on a vibrational truth. So it's time for an upgrade in what belief structure is. And that's not surprising because belief structure is the opposite of you. You don't do a lot of processing of beliefs, basically. You do a lot of processing of thoughts and ideas. So, the new era for Geminis is that they're thinking on a multidimensional level and they're believing themselves on a multidimensional level. Now, the sun going to Sagittarius is interesting because now that you are making all these changes, the way you relate to yourself does not compute. So you are not in a position with the way you approach yourself to bring the best out of yourself. I'm not sure you give yourself the score, but this is about how good you are at looking at you and looking at how you can change your life. So there'll be a new philosophy about how to approach yourself that'll be coming up in the first 10 days of Sagittarius, your opposite sign. And then while you're changing your relationship to yourself, the Earth in your sign, Gemini, is going to be doing a couple of things. One is going to be manifesting new behavior. So you absolutely will be treating yourself differently, maybe going the extra mile, maybe making sure that you have no chemicals in your food. I mean, you're going to go an extra mile for yourself. That's first and foremost. But because the Earth is in Gemini, and because Jupiter's in Gemini, this new way of operating is probably brand new. Maybe not even so brand new that maybe it's pioneering to the Earth. So the universe is saying, hey, go out and build this new relationship to yourself and build this new behavior to yourself, because what you are doing might be prototyping the new human, so to speak. All right. Moving on to our next one. Couldn't see it change. Cancers. Cancer, your transformation of life and reality from the universe to the multiverse is actually the way you see long-term dreams and wishes. You have had only a universal one type, one path will make you happy. And that has, of course, made you unhappy. Whenever you identify there's only one way to make you happy, sure enough, it's going to actually be what brings you down, right? I know that you're not that narrow-minded per se, but in some ways you have been a bit obsessive from what I've seen and insisting on that something has to be right for you to be happy. And that is a universe. You're saying one thing has to be right. The universe says, actually, there's a billion ways to make yourself happy. But the first step is desire to actually make yourself happy, right? So I think this transformation from you is that there's a million ways to skin the cat, pardon the expression, that there are many ways to Oz, there are many ways to serious joy in that path, and it's a matter of choosing the one that your heart loves the most. I feel like that's the real lesson there. Now, Pluto in Aquarius is going to be very interesting for Cancers because, you know, Cancers, although very emotional and sensitive and compassionate, they actually don't allow themselves to get too close to people. And that's because they haven't allowed themselves to get too close to themselves. So Pluto in Aquarius is saying it's now time for high resolution boundaries with yourself. High resolution boundaries are not black and white. They're white on Wednesdays, black on Fridays, and sometimes pink on Tuesdays. High emotional boundaries for yourself, high vibrational boundaries, are boundaries that allow for a special boundary set or mixture based on any kind of thing in life. So if you're saying, this is my boundary with myself and coffee, or this is how my boundary with myself and food, Pluto's saying, no, you can't stop at food. Every type of food, every type of existence of the food, you're going to have raising the vibration of what you will trust or not, and therefore raising trust by changing boundaries with yourself, or perhaps enforcing them for the first time. Now, the sun in Sagittarius for you, I think, is very exciting because you are going to rebuild yourself from the ground up. You are going to ultimately have a new philosophy about how to live in the present. You're going to have a new philosophy about what the present is. You're going to have a new philosophy about what health is. So you see Cancers really lighting up on these issues of how to take care of themselves in the moment and how to become more aware of their body. And I think, therefore, from that great body, from that great presence, you can then create a daily reality that's also great. Now, with that happening, the Earth will be in Gemini. And the Earth in Gemini says, hey, you know what? You have great faith in the moment, but part of that faith is not going down the rabbit holes of fear. So the Earth in Gemini has the intention of manifesting new faith in yourself. And most of the time, I mean, I've only seen, probably 1,000 examples of this, but most of the time, the raising of the faith comes directly from just ending the fear. But the Earth in Gemini says, hey, those thoughts that keep you up at night, those thoughts you obsess on, they're building fear, they're not building faith. So there's a lot of mental change that has to happen for you to make this shift from faith, from fear to faith in yourself. And that's part of the Earth in Gemini. Leos, and I'm a Leo rising, so I can speak to this too. Leos their transition from the universe to the multiverse has to do with how you approach emotional security. What makes you emotionally secure? First of all, there's no one way. It's not a universe. It's a multiverse. But secondly, it comes from different disciplines and different dimensions. For instance, you can nurture yourself and have long-term security simply by being nice to yourself 7 days a week. That's it. You take a bath every time at the same night, every night at the same time, you'll find that you start to feel secure about life, something that simple. But you might also realize that you have to have 1 month's rent in the bank to feel secure. So you're moving to this new approach of multi-level, multi-dimensional emotional security. And in most cases, I think it means that you are no longer relying on public opinion, which is a huge thing that Leos have done in the past for their emotional security. The public likes them, then they feel secure. Public doesn't like them, they don't feel secure. That's why we've had really Leos become show-offs over the years because they just wanted the public to like them because ultimately that was their emotional security, right? Now, when it comes to Pluto and Aquarius, this is going to be interesting, for myself, just to be in that space, but also just to see Leos change differently as well. You could say that Leos had looked at themselves as royalty, as stars, and that was their approach. Pluto and Aquarius is saying, it's time for a higher approach than that. That old approach is expired. The universe isn't going to be supporting it anymore. So the way you approach your relationship to yourself, the way the attitudes you bring to the table, the prejudices you bring to the table when you approach yourself, these are too low vibration. They have to be higher vibration. If you don't know the difference between higher and lower, it's more loving and less loving. So the more loving your approach to yourself, the higher vibration you are to yourself, the more critical you are yourself, the more you pull yourself down into low vibration, right? So that's Pluto in Aquarius, and we'll see what happens. That will turn into, of course, relationships to everyone in the world, et cetera, over time. Now, the sun in Sagittarius is also exciting for Leos because it's time for a new story around self-love. Can you see what the universe is doing? The universe is asking you to create a new foundation for how you feel emotional security, and it's also at the same time asking for you to begin to fall in love with yourself for new reasons. So that's very exciting with the Sun in Sagittarius, a new philosophy. With the Earth in Gemini, it means that you have to start being a friend to yourself in the world. I think you put yourself up for things that was not very nice. Put yourself through stress that isn't necessary. And it was all probably because you weren't loving yourself to begin with. So you're going to find Leos positioning themselves differently in society. They may not want to be the star now. They may want to be the one in the back of the room taking all the important notes. Moving on. Virgo. Virgo, you are transforming yourself through your attitude about the future and your strategy for life. So the high degrees of Scorpio is your plans for the future and what you tend to strategize. Now, if you know Virgo, you know they always are doing these plans, right? They got like 5-year plans and 10-year plans, and they're all bounded, you know. And what the universe is saying is, no, those plans, the way you structure them, what's in the book and what doesn't get put in the book, this is the problem. What makes it into the theories, or what makes it into the program. So you're changing the boundaries around attitude and strategy, which allows you to have full freedom to do what you want to do. With Pluto and Aquarius, this is kind of interesting because your area of health and healing is ruled by Aquarius. When it comes to being a healer, you're an Aquarius. You have Aquarius ruling the 6th house. So, we give Virgos all this credibility for being able to heal, but they're drawing from Aquarius energies. So for the next 24 years, you're going to be opening up to different ways of health, different ways of life, different ways of looking at the manifestation of yourself and the incarnation of yourself. And most likely these were not even available until you started contemplating them, because you're taking your big Virgo consciousness and you're diving it up and dissecting it in a brilliant way. So the first stage of this is going to be how you live in the moment and how you live in your body, all right? And from there, we'll go on to do bigger and better things, right? Now, when it comes to the Sun in Sagittarius, it's time for a new philosophy about how you feel about yourself. It's time for a new philosophy about your childhood. So you're diving into this new way of realizing that maybe it wasn't that bad of a childhood. Maybe it was destined for you. Some sort of spin like that. And that frees you from the burdens of that story. So I think you're releasing yourself from those childhood stories. And with the Earth in Gemini, what's going to happen is it's time to think of different reasons for why you make a decision. The evidence you're bringing to the table for when you commit to yourself is probably inappropriate. And you're probably not bringing enough evidence. You're only bringing intellectual evidence. Your mind isn't also asking your feelings and asking other parts of yourself. So the decisions and commitments to yourself are going to be what changes once we start to change your philosophy about how you feel. Moving on. Libras. Libras, you are going from a universe to a multiverse when it comes to the idea of abundance, all right? The way you look at money, the way you look at long-term money, the way you look at the idea of money working for itself, maybe you don't look at it that way, but the ability to make, many instead of one. This is what's going to transform your life, that you're going to somehow extract your ability to scale into your ability to change your life. So when you can scale differently, you'll actually change your life at the same time, is what the planets are saying. And so this is really maybe a different approach on what money is, what's the importance of money, and are you a renter, are you a purchaser? These are the kind of things you make decisions on the 3rd decan of the 2nd house. Now, when Pluto goes into Aquarius, this is going to be pretty profound, and this just proves to you that this Aquarius thing is real, because Pluto in Aquarius says, hey, Libras have got to raise their vibration of self-love. Basically, your self-love is like at a very archaic old level, is what the planets are saying. Like basically, hey, I ate today, I love myself. So you've kind of hit bottom when it comes to self-love. And I think that's a natural course of making other people important, which is what you have done for centuries, and you've been therefore the best at relationships and the peace artist, as we like to call you. But that's over now. You need higher self-love. Now, when the Sun goes into Sagittarius, it does mean that you're going to change your philosophies around how to talk to yourself. The way you talk to yourself is based on a different philosophy, a different religion. It's based on a different belief structure, frankly, than the one your heart would rather subscribe to. So you'll be really looking at the way you inner dialogue in this first chapter of the Sun in Sagittarius. And with the Earth in Gemini, you're going to be manifesting a new belief in yourself. As you see and talk about yourself differently, you then come to new conclusions about what to believe in yourself. And this will be a big, big part of next year, is that you're going to click into a gear of believing yourself 100%. And then I think at that point, we've never seen a Libra like that. Should take a drink. Scorpios. Scorpios, your transformation has to do with your character. What is in and what is out of your character? What is your character? And that means what will be your action plan over time. Character comes from observing people over time. You observe the person steals over and over again, they're a thief, right? We come up with that label. So you're basically changing the boundaries around labels. You're changing the boundaries around what characters are, what a good character is versus a bad character. And you're also coming up with a new action plan. And so it's probably from the action plan, like what you're going to do next, and then after that, and then after that, that will be ultimately the force that transforms your character. By doing it, you will become it, right? We've all learned that here. Now, Pluto in Aquarius goes to a very interesting spot for Scorpios, which is self-nurturing. Scorpios have this ability to sort of, just cut off the limb and then put on a tourniquet. They basically can just coldly go where no man has gone before. They can just go completely cold. Now, I think that's necessary if you're going to be drawing lines with the world. You have to go cold. You have to not worry about how they are feeling or let it get to you. But I think Scorpios have gone too far. And so as a result, Scorpios tend to feel emotionally abandoned. And what you don't realize is it's not the world abandoning you, it's you have abandoned you, and therefore you've attracted people who abandon you. So it's going to be this raise of vibration. And, I think Scorpios are going to be forced to have a lot of family issues at first because this is where these self-nurturing patterns initiated. But don't worry, we've already been through the first 2 steps of Pluto in Aquarius. So if you survived last year, you survived the worst of it. Now, the Sun in Sagittarius is also interesting for Scorpios because it's time for a new philosophy about why you're worthy to yourself. Your self-worth philosophies are outdated, okay? And that means that you might be using like Western ideals, like Western, cowboy Western, ideals, or you may be valuing yourself based on the Bible, which is cool document and all, but it is several thousand years old. So it's like there's got to have been an update since then, right? But you have basically developed your self-worth around a philosophy that has expired in your life. In other words, you built it around a belief that you don't believe in anymore. That's what the problem is. So you're going to be murky about self-worth, and that may come out in ways of like, can I do it, or can I do it, or will I be good enough? Those are all self-worth energy, thoughts, and expressions. Now, the Earth in Gemini means that as you are transforming your self-worth into a new philosophy, you then manifest new trust in yourself, new ways or ideas to trust yourself, and you also manifest new boundaries for yourself. So this house of Gemini for you is the 8th house, the house that you naturally rule, which means that the Earth is going to help you do what you mostly do naturally. The flip side of this is the core of you might be challenged in this new season, and are you flexible and open enough to try something new with yourself? Because of those who don't try, I think will certainly not do. All right. On to the next one. Sagittarius. Sagittariuses are changing their life based on their faith in God and their connection to the universe. So basically, Sagittariuses, these high degrees of Scorpio, are where's the line with God? Can you talk to God? Does God talk back? Is it impossible for a minion like you to be able to talk to God in the first place? What are your beliefs about this, of course, but where are the boundaries? Where does it start and stop? And I think most importantly, where does it open up? I think Sagittariuses are usually very earthly intelligent and more intelligent than the average human, that they understand more about Earth than other people do. They certainly traveled more than we have. But I think that your understanding of God consciousness and non-Earth stuff is minimum. And I think that part of the new era is that Sagittarius also have to learn about spirituality or all these different modalities that connect us to higher self. So I think that is going to be what the final wrap-up of universe to multiverse. You had a universe view of God. Now you'll have a multiverse view of God. Pluto in Aquarius is interesting for you because it has to do with your house of thinking. So for 24 years, you're going to be forced to think differently. And what's compelling about that, of course, is that Sagittarius tend to fall into this sort of character based on all the places they've visited, all the things they've done. And so the universe is saying, hey, no matter what the character is, it's obviously not a good character that works for you if you're not happy with your life. So you'll be transforming what's appropriate or what's not appropriate to say to yourself. With the sun in your sign, happy birthday, happy early birthday to Sagittarius. Your heart's going to be making changes about how you treat yourself. And so frankly, how you treat yourself is not appropriate anymore. It's time for a new philosophy. It's time for a new protocol. So you're going to be looking at new self-treatment in your birthday kickoff. With the Earth in Gemini, it means now that you're treating yourself differently, you have a new philosophy of responding to yourself, your me-rich vows to yourself must be upgraded. They're too low resolution, mostly because they were written at a time when things were very struggling. or you were struggling. So you're going to manifest a new relationship to yourself and new ideas and data points that will support it, in essence. Another drink. Alrighty. Capricorns. Capricorns, you are going to be wrapping up your transformation from universe to multiverse when it comes to your reputation in the world. Capricorns like to have one single brand that owns everything, right? And kept it very, very focused, which is what you're very good at. But the universe is saying, no, it's time for a multiverse approach to your role in society. In other words, in Kansas, you're this, and in Texas, you're that, and in Europe, you're this, and that you're a different person in different places. Now, Capricorns may go, that's not integrity. Yes, it is. It's bringing out the side of you that matches that part of you, of your life. So you're going to have a new perspective on your world placement, and that's going to be what shifts you from uni to multi as far as timelines are concerned. Pluto in Aquarius is very interesting for Capricorns because what it's saying is your perception of self-worth is too low vibration, right? So the idea that you're valuable just because you showed up, or you're valuable because you got into the class no one else got into, or you feel valuable because you have something no one else has. These are old school values. These values won't last. They're already dead, frankly, which may be why you're having a hard time manifesting when you want to manifest. So Pluto in Aquarius is in the house of money, but it starts with what you value in yourself and whether or not your value of yourself is high vibration enough or not. Now with the sun moving into Sagittarius, it's now time for you to have a new philosophy about faith. So whatever you believe about faith over fear is probably outdated. It's time for a new definition of what having faith in yourself is. And this is just a theory that you will prove over time. But it's important because you can fall into that fear of God not with you, right? And maybe it's not that God's not with you, it's that you're looking at God from the wrong philosophy, the wrong perspective. By the way, when I say wrong, I mean the one your heart does not identify with. Because I believe in a multiverse where everyone can have a different relationship to God if they want to. So it's a new faith over fear that's going to be born. But the Earth in Gemini says it's time to manifest new health. And it's time to manifest a new version of the present. What is the present like? We've all known Capricorns. You go up and talk to them, and they're on their phone doing calculations and stuff. That's their present. They're escaped from their reality. They're paying attention to their business. Now, we're all guilty of this. I'm just saying that, right now, the universe is saying Capricorns have to do this more than others. So how you think about the present, how you think about your body, how you think about your health, this is paramount to your future. So don't ignore it. Moving on. Okay. Aquarius. Aquarius, you are transforming your life from universe to multiverse when it comes to career. You've been on a one-track mind when it comes to career, a universe mind. That's not to say that you're only doing one thing. It's that you only have this, let's say you're doing 5 things. You've stayed on that same track. What the planets are saying is that you have tended to not be flexible about what you will or won't do. And so as a result, you're not vibrating high enough with career stuff. You're not getting the career that you deserve. So it's time to transform where the boundary is when it comes to what goes into a decision and what you're aiming for in the first place, right? So it's a big deal. Now, with Pluto in your sign, obviously this will hit you the hardest. This is going to be changing all the boundaries with yourself everywhere. So you are going to be holding space, and it also means that the way you treat yourself has to be higher vibration. Treating yourself as that small moment in the shower where you call yourself stupid. That's self-treatment. Or you doubt yourself when you know darn well you're right. So there's bad habits, if you will, around how you treat yourself. And Pluto's saying, hey, the first thing we got to do to get the Aquarius nation going on, for the age of Aquarius to happen, is for Aquariuses to treat themselves like the age of Aquarius, for Aquariuses to not treat themselves like the age of Pisces. That's the real big deal, I feel, and that's Pluto in Aquarius. Now, the sun in Sagittarius means that you're also going to develop a different philosophy about who you are in the world. But the first step of that is how to be a friend to yourself when you're in the world. So we all need a friend looking out for us in the world, right? Watching our back, making sure that we don't go too far. What the planets are suggesting is Aquariuses need to make their own version and to have a part of their consciousness do nothing but monitor their consciousness to see if you're being a really good friend to yourself. That is the beginning of, I think, your enlightenment and a big part of your singular to multiverse, universe to multiverse perspective. Now, as the sun is changing your philosophy about where you belong or don't belong, the Earth in Gemini is actually having you rewrite love questions, self-love questions. In essence, the way you think of self-love is not quite there yet. And the reason why you would know is because unless you are, smiling like a clown, in the third act of Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey Circus, you really aren't necessarily can claim the self-love. If you're not feeling it, if you're not bouncing off the walls, you're really not doing it. So I think that you're being taught how to find the right words, find the right frequencies, and to omit the things that don't need to be in that conversation. That's the first step of how to love yourself better, is in the way you talk to yourself and the way you refer to yourself. But it's really cute that you blame the world when you are the social people. All right, our final one. Pisces. Pisces, your universe to multiverse perspective has to do with believing in your own heart self. So when you believe in your heart, okay, when you believe with your heart in what you know, you transform. That's it. You have not been really going with what you believe. Most Pisces I know live double lives. They got one life where they talk to people about what they really believe, and they got another crop of people that they never tell what they really believe to as a means of controlling those people. I know, but that's what you're doing. You're controlling those people. So I think the multiverse is always believe in yourself, but realize that your belief in yourself about this will assist you in this area, and your belief yourself about that will assist you with this person. So there's a multiverse approach when it comes to believing in yourself. You don't have to share everything with everyone, and you don't have to share everything with one person. It's completely up to what you believe is worthy for you. Now, with Pluto in Aquarius, though, this is going to be interesting because Pluto in Aquarius says you've got to elevate your faith in yourself. And the irony here is Pisces is the connection to the other side. Pisces is the rainbow bridge that brings you to, higher self. And what Pluto in Aquarius says is that Pisces don't know how to do it. So you are beginning your ascension process, basically, by first starting with faith versus fear. Choosing the faith over the fear inside yourself is the beginning of shifting that now to a spirit-based operation center versus right now, which is an earth-based operation center. Now, that said, with that transformation, the sun in Sagittarius says, hey, it's time for Pisces to make decisions for themselves based on a different philosophical criteria or based on a different belief in yourself. It could be that you believe you could win the White House, or you believe you could go this far, but you're not doing anything about it. You're not deciding to, you're not committing to. So the way you make commitments to yourself needs a new plan. It needs a new philosophy. It needs a new school of thought. And that's what you'll be doing with the sun in Sagittarius. That believing in yourself, what does it take? What are the boundaries? What are the lines? And what do all the states of awareness have to say in unison to make you really actually be committed and make decisions for yourself that are for your highest good? Now, that said, with the Earth in Gemini, as you are making better decisions for yourself, you have to manifest different ways of thinking about your feelings. And that's the weird thing about Pisces. They feel like crazy. They can pick up on their whole environment, but they have the ability to intellectualize their feelings about themselves. It's kind of weird. I think it's like a coping mechanism. And so ultimately, you have to really feel differently about yourself, or have to change the language you use when you talk about feelings about yourself. So the new era Pisces are going to have a much richer vocabulary around what they're feeling, and I think we're going to see them sharing a lot more than they have in the past. Alrighty. Well, folks, we're going to take a little break here. We're going to watch some trailers again. And when I come back, Jason Stevenson is here to talk about meditation. Keep streaming.
You know, if some people just never get to feel beautiful.
The girls come walk for me. Throw shade like a lady and move your feet.
I may be huge now, but I was like a little kid on a corner, and I'm watching these drag queens come out. And it was the scariest thing in my life. Now I'm a big drag queen. How does your dad look?
I realized that I did need him in my life, but now I'm just on the road to try to learn how to love him.
It's gonna be weird, right? They hear them calling me mama.
I don't care about that as long as they don't call you dad.
It's your job to, with every breath in your body, to make sure you can try and save your kids and prepare them for the world. You can't avoid the gun violence. You can't avoid the homicides. And it's like no matter where you live, nobody's safe. New Orleans struggles with like venues and places to do drag, especially in the black community. We just don't have it.
Within the last year, 5 venues are open and closed down.
We work so hard and we're not able to do it.
Some people don't have nothing to live for other than that. Drag is amazing. It saves so many lives. It's like I don't know what the gay community would do without it.
I mean, I've come to the conclusion that this is definitely an assignment sent from God. So until He says I'm done, I'm not done.
When I get my place, that's my dream. Have all the bells and whistles you need to have an amazing drag show. So it is really hard, but family can overcome anything. I am running a drag family called the House of Alexander.
As the mother, all I can do is say what I would prefer my kids to do.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Shulman. I am director and producer of the Bubblez documentary. I've also been part of the series
Sound check. Welcome to Astro Mingle, the spiritual podcast that mingles with the brilliantly bright light workers and innovative influencers of our time. In the world of enlightenment, one practice has been continually considered in almost every modality and every spirituality, and that's meditation. Tonight's guest has made a lifetime study of this topic. For over 15 years, Jason Stevenson has studied and experienced the positive life-changing effects of guided meditation and relaxation music. His work combined with his talents as a content creator has helped him and led him to become one of the most popular meditation guides in the world. His two YouTube channels, Jason Stevenson Sleep Meditations and Relax and Recharge by Jason Stevenson, has grown to over 4.5 million subscribers with over 1 billion views combined. So, without further ado, please send waves of love and light and gratitude to welcome our guest, Step 7 Capricorn, Jason Stevenson. Welcome, sir.
Hello, Christopher. Thanks very much for having me, mate.
Thank you. I love the word mate. It just always lights up my heart. Americans need that, so thank you.
You're welcome.
I have to say, this is my first personal question about it. Every time I meditated in the beginning and tried, it seemed like work. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like a lot of work. And I'm just curious from one human to another, what that inner discipline looks like. Is it a joy? Do you see stuff that you never saw? Is it like a new frontier? What kept you motivated to go down this path?
They're really great questions. And I have to start by saying, really, the showing up is work itself. Like just to show up time and time again, no matter what happens in that one journey, in that one sitting. Because, sometimes no matter how many years we've done meditation for, if these thoughts, our minds are active, right? These thoughts just keep coming and going and coming and going all the time. But I guess our job is to literally become friends with our thoughts. And I love John Kabat-Zinn. He always says, put out the welcome mat for the thoughts. So our job's not to fight off those thoughts and say, I can't do meditation. My mind can't quieten down. It's actually to acknowledge the thoughts and go, okay, there's a thought that goes by, but we don't have to go and travel down that rabbit hole, but rather we just get disciplined to always come back to our breath again and again and again. And that is where the work lies. And yes, it does take discipline. It is not something that we can just, you can have this beautiful enlightening experience. You do it and you see beautiful things. It doesn't happen like that all the time. It can happen, but it doesn't most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like your approach to showing up as the work, because it reminds me, first of all, of going to the gym, and trying to build my body up. It's like, if you just got yourself to the gym, once you're there, you're like, all right, you just, part of you just surrenders to it. It's getting the clothes on
Exactly.
and going. Yeah, totally. Makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
Thank you for that. Well, let's talk a
Yeah.
little about your background. I mean, we've often heard that, meditation can be life-changing, but in your case, it's literal, right? Can you tell us about how you discovered meditation and how it saved you from addiction?
Wow. Okay. Well, I've been meditating on and off since I was like probably 16 years of age, although I really first experienced meditation probably as a child. It happened by an accident, really. But aside from that, I got into meditation. I started to attend a Buddhist monastic retreat.
Mm.
That was in my early 20s. And it was at that time that during that period of time, by the end of it, where I realized that this has so much power, like this is so powerful. Because my first few days of doing that retreat, I'm going to tell you, they were difficult for me because what happened is, we distract ourselves with so many things, right? In the outside world, we're just constantly feeding our minds, and there's so much going on, especially like with lots of social media now, lots of stuff going on. But when I was forced to sit there, and once we started, they made it clear that we could not leave this practice for these 14 days. My first few days, this brought up this anger inside of me.
Mhm, I was
I
gonna
was
say.
frustrated with all the rules, and I'm thinking, what are they doing? What is this about? This is ridiculous. This is not peaceful. Like I was
Yeah.
fighting off so much, just fighting, fighting, fighting. And then something just kicked in on I think it was about the third day. And I went out to this, we had to have chores each day, mindfulness chores. I still didn't understand at that point what it was all about.
Mm.
The Reverend said to me, okay, Jason, you're going to go out and you're going to clean all the railings of the temple.
Hmm.
And there's kilometers of railings. And she handed me a bucket and a toothbrush.
Whoa.
Of course, I looked at her, I got angry at that. And I'm like, I said, are you serious? Like,
Mhm.
what's the point of that? And she just said, just begin.
Mm.
So in that job, at first I was scrubbing away and I was angry about the whole thing. And then all of a sudden, once I settled into just the job and the moment, I began for the first time in such a long time to find presence of the moment. So much so that I remember the little crevices in the ornate handles, and I found a little tiny spider, and I gently got that little spider out and cleaned a bit in there, and then I put him back, and it just hit me that, oh my goodness, this is the first time I've been present in such a long time. And could you imagine, like at the end of this 14-day journey, I really began to realize what this was all about. Now, my life was still going up and down and all sorts of things, and I got into, I had some rough parts in my life and got into some addiction of taking recreational drugs and
Mhm.
alcohol, probably because I was just, I don't know, I had some times of confusion in my life. I was angry. I'd been doing some singing jobs began to fell through. The whole thing lots of things began to crumble at that time. So my
Mm.
first escape was to just blank myself out of it.
Mhm.
So much so that during a lot of that time, there was lots of sexual encounters, unsafe sex. There was drugs. There was all that sex, drugs, and rock and roll, if you like. And what happened was I abused myself and others on so much of a level that in 2005 I was diagnosed with HIV, and boom, that was the hugest wake-up call, much needed wake-up call of my life. And that just shook me to the core, and my life for the next year everything just imploded. It crumbled, and I hibernated. I began to suffer with anxiety. I'd never had anxiety in my life.
Mm.
Lots of fear. And it was around that time, interestingly, that the movie The Secret came into play. And a friend, during that time, I would hibernate and hide away. I couldn't even face people. And I remember putting this video on, The Secret, and listening to this over and over and over again, and just the affirmations in that, the people in that, the music in that completely transformed my life to give me hope again. So, and that's what I took on more meditations, more affirmations, and yeah, that was the beginning.
That was the beginning. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
every light worker can talk about where they were when when The Secret came out. Like, it seems to be that unifying moment for light workers. And hearing your story about numbing, and I mean, basically, the irony here is that you're using drugs to move into a meditative state. That maybe you craved to be in a meditative state and you were just cheating at it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
in some
yeah,
ways, it was your destiny, and you were finding the shadow side of it versus the light side of it.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Can I tell you, Christopher, that I discovered this sort of spiritual side of myself probably when I was very, very young, when I was going around Australia, had a spiritual moment. And I sometimes think that as an adult, I was always wanting to go back there. And, I had this awakening as a child where I would just be on my own, and I just felt this wave of peace wash over me. And I realized at that time that I had everything that I could ever need in my entire life contained within me. And I think, reflecting back on that, maybe I was always trying to reach that state again.
Yeah, it's a common story. I have to say, with a lot of people who found the light, so to speak, that they first, found it through some substance, and we're trying to find utopia, trying to find that perfection through, through physical, physical, the way, physical means.
Yeah.
And of course, that in itself, maybe answers the question that can we reach spiritual through physical? It's not not the same realms.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you've been, who have you been? I can't quite read this. Basically, who have you been with as far as main teachers and influencers while learning meditation? Who have you studied under, I guess, is the story I'm trying to ask about here. Because there's a lot of people out there that seem to have the way, and they're all different ways.
For sure, for sure. It's been a bit of an eclectic approach, to be honest. I mean, my earlier years was definitely at the Nantian Temple in Wollongong, the reverends themselves, and I would just go there and just be with them quite often. And I actually got to do some travel and touring in the Asian countries with them as well.
Wow.
That because I entered the Buddhist songwriting contest, and so then it took me to Taiwan and Malaysia and Singapore. So I got to be around them so much and feel their presence. So that was a teaching on a day-to-day basis that was just really profound for me. But in regards to other teachers that are out there, John Kabat-Zinn for mindfulness meditation, he has been a real he's been a teacher for me, and as has Wayne Dyer, the late Wayne Dyer.
Love Wayne Dyer.
Just, oh my goodness.
Love Wayne
Just
Dyer.
so many books, all his books and videos and everything. And I miss him so much. I kind of wish he was around still, but his work's there. It's still there in our books, right? And our hearts, really.
Yeah. He set the foundation, I feel like, for intention. I mean, like some of the major things we just take as natural light work stuff now came from him. People don't even know it.
Yes.
I'm proud to say he was a Taurus.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Great energy, though.
I'm guessing you are too, right?
Of course. Yes. That was yeah. Well, I value him like, things I value myself. It's really powerful stuff. That was an interesting group of light workers that came out that first crop. Really.
From Louise L. Hay.
Yes, exactly. Louise Hay, and even with astrology, I'm blanking on her name right now, but there were many at that time that really set the foundation for what we do now, and I don't even think people really realize it. you know?
Mm.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff, but go ahead. So
Yeah,
I was just
just
gonna say,
lots of powerful people, and Louise L. Hay was another one that's, you can heal your life. Again, I
yeah,
picked that up and began to read that and take some responsibility for my life, and to not only treat myself with respect, but treat others with so much more respect, so much so that I really wanted and needed to give back to the world. I just knew that was a part of my calling.
yeah. Well, I liked your remark about how you're around the energies of these people and you learn so much just by watching them deal with everyday life. I mean, a lot of times role modelship is the most powerful learning there is, to be around an example, a living example. Yeah.
Do you know, I remember a time when I was a little, I don't know if I was confused about my religious, where I belonged in life, I guess. And so I was attending both the church, the Christian church, and also the Buddhist temple. But I felt conflict about this. And I thought, oh my goodness, I have to make up my mind, and so the person I could talk to about that was one of the reverends at the Buddhist temple. And I went to her and said, I'm a bit confused at the moment. Like, should I be here? Should I be there? And she just said, listen, she said, you don't have to force yourself into anything. She said, maybe your job is to go away there and maybe you learn some things there that you can bring back here. And she said, maybe you learn things here that you can take there. And that was just it literally set myself free. Just that conversation with her. She was so compassionate, and yeah.
I'm curious in your studies. I mean, there there are rumors that Yeshua, Jesus, was learned a lot from the Buddhists. I too come from Christian Buddhist background, both. It's just like you. My mom was a Buddhist, my dad was a Christian, his family, so I did both as well. And I found it was kind of interesting. I felt like they needed each other because it kind of felt like Buddhism sort of gave you that approach of non-attachment, and which is more of a powerful approach, I think, to getting what you want, to not be attached to it. And I think Buddhism helped me to connect to God more than, because in Christianity, like, okay, just pray. Well, how do we do that? Buddhism really taught me that. But on the flip side, Buddha never talked about God. You know what I mean? What
That's
happens
right.
after. So it seems like they complete each other in a weird way.
I think so. And I think I heard that one saying one day where it said something about, praying is asking, and meditation is receiving, or speaking and then listening for answers. And I really, I like that, because when we meditate, quite often things come up for us, right? And it's just
Yeah.
there are no words, but they just come up.
No.
So whispers,
Profound ones. Yeah. Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
when you contemplate them, use a simple packed in a simple package. How did your spiritual experiences evolve through nature growing up? We had read that nature is a big influence for you.
Nature's been just even the word, when you say the word to me, nature's been such a huge part of my life, because I was blessed. My parents took myself and my two brothers around Australia when we were about 8 years of age. So it got to travel through all the deserts of Australia and the rainforests and the whole country, and the outback, and some connection to the outback I had, where I would just wander off on my own in the middle of nowhere and be at peace. And I had some really profound moments out there too, of just wherever I'd be, my brothers would play, they'd always play together, but I always wandered off on my own. I got just much more just being alone and sitting. And I would sit out there, and again, those little waves of peace would wash over me as a young kid. And I didn't know anything about it or what it meant, or I didn't even question it. I guess we just don't. But I just remember being so peaceful in those moments. And so, of course, that has always stuck with me, being in the country, being in the outback. In fact, last year, my mum and I walked the Simpson Desert on a trek again.
Wow.
My mum being 80 years of age.
Wow.
Yeah, she's a champion, I can tell you. I struggled, and I was concerned for my own health, and I'm thinking, how is she coping? I don't know. She's
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, you can see where you got your power to be focused on to keep it up with meditation and not give up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Got from her that
yeah.
dedication. So I'm curious because I have tried a few, different varieties of meditation myself. I can't say that I'm pleased with the results yet. So I'm a great zero here for you to influence as far as I think my understanding. Can you tell me sort of your arc of growth with meditation, how you looked at it in the beginning to middle to now?
Okay, so quite. Let's just go back to the earlier years. I would go through waves of being fully committed to it, and that might happen for 2, 3, 4 months, and then phasing off, and then sometimes be just like every now and then when I'm stressed, which is kind of sometimes it's almost a bit too late then, but it doesn't matter anyway. It's any time's a good time. But then then there would be other times where it'd be just spasmodic. At this stage in my life now, over the last only few months, it has been consistent, daily, every day, silent meditation, because I sometimes do guided meditations but silent meditation and 30 minutes of silence. And I'm telling you now, if someone would have told me, 20 years ago and said, Jay, if you just stick at it, just every single day, even if you do 15 minutes, it will be life-changing. If someone would have told me that, maybe I wouldn't have been ready to hear that anyway. I would have been, oh, yeah, okay, righto, sure. But in these last few months, I am finally beginning to see my life change. And so much so that I am been sharing this with my students now, the ability to, if you be consecutive, show up consecutively, I could almost guarantee within 20 days, if you do that consecutively, you will already begin to see changes happening in your life. And it's not just small, it's quite profound, actually. You'll catch yourself just being able to handle things with so much greater ease that would normally stress you out. A little story comes to my mind about my dog, taking my dog for a walk every morning, and he's a blue heeler and he's an active, crazy dog. And so I take him in the car, we get to the spot, and in the car, he's jumping backwards and forwards, and then he licks my face, and he's just going absolutely crazy. And I'm like, stop it. I'm trying to concentrate, and I'm going like this, and, stop, yelling at him, sit down. Anyway, here's what's happened. Over the few months of me doing it consecutively on this daily 30-minute silence, what's happened is I have started to find this peace within me, and I look at him and I begin to see him as a joyous bundle of energy. And I'm actually now, he's quietening down. He's still excited, but he's not crazy like he used to be, because I am not going crazy at him. And so now we've just matched this beautiful energy, and it's just, I get in the car and it's just going like this, and I love you, mate, love you. Like, it's so good. It's so good now. That's just one small thing. But
This comes as a result. I find that in my own work, the consistency is something very powerful, period. And I don't know, is it because certainly when we were a tribe, we were consistent. I mean, this seems like something we might have lost with our modern era, not being consistent with things because of all the distractions from modern life, perhaps. Because you look at, people living a more simple life, they seem to be more grounded, like you're talking about. It's interesting.
I think you've got that. I think you just nailed it on the head there, that there are so many more distractions. So it really is easier to be distracted by what's going on and almost to make excuses and to say, this is what I used to do before. I'll just skip this day. It'll be okay. But then the problem is when I skip that day, then the next day, then it just turns into skipping a week, and then I stop again. So I've said to my students, I said, not this time now. I've seen the benefits too much of this consecutive practice to, this is becoming a part of my life now, you know?
That's really beautiful and powerful. I'm curious where it takes you, because I feel like humankind is just beginning to map out consciousness. And you're a pioneer. I mean, you're one of the adventurers. You're getting on the boat and going across the seas, not sure if the earth is flat. You know,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm really interested. I'm interested to see where it takes me, and I want to share this journey. You know, I turned this just a couple of months into this 365-day. I call it a challenge for myself, but it's not really a challenge. It's more of a journey because what's happening is I'm starting to like even fall in love with those moments of stillness, of practice, of sitting there. And I'm beginning to want to show up on a daily basis. Let's see what unfolds today. You know, just coming in with that open heart and that open mind, because sometimes, you know, those practices, you know, I can sit there and for the first 15 minutes, it can be just even 20 minutes. Sometimes it's just the mind's just, but then even if you just get those few moments of stillness, it's it stopped. So yeah,
it's amazing. Do you feel, you know, right now the astrology, I don't know if you follow astrology, but the astrology says that human beings are finally coming to a place where they understand themselves for the first time in this lifetime, you know, in the arc of our growth. Do you feel that meditation led you to understanding yourself, or do you feel understanding yourself led you to finally accepting meditation?
Whew. Let me think about that for a
Sure.
moment.
Go to meditate. We'll be right back. No, I'm kidding. I know how to answer it now.
I think it's a bit of both. I think it's a
Okay.
crossover.
Yeah, probably.
I actually think it's a bit of a crossover because as I meditate more, I'm beginning to understand myself more and life more. Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I think it's a great question.
I'm curious. I mean, I'm curious mind. Can you describe to us what it is like when you were doing meditation correctly? You know, what is that? What is that like?
Okay, I would say this, that remember how I was just saying a few moments ago, that idea of just showing up? I think if we can just show up, then you're on your way to doing it correctly, because that's the greatest step, is by showing up and being and sitting. Now, as for correctly, here's the thing. The greatest thing that we can take away from sitting still is sitting without judgment. So because we judge ourselves so much, and one of the first things we say is, oh, too many thoughts, I can't do meditation. And what I would say to that, if someone has that problem of when they say too many thoughts, just show up and do 5 minutes for the day. Just 5 minutes. And even if there's every single thought, you just showing up and putting that welcome mat out for those thoughts, don't judge yourself for that, and just go, that's where my mind is right now. That's where my mind is. And then have that grounding point, that anchor point, if you like, of the breathing. I use the breath going in and out of the nostrils. I actually get very clear in my mind of the actual point it enters and exits. And that helps me, because I remember initially when I first started, they said, oh, focus on your breathing. And I'm thinking, okay, well, where do I focus? Is it the belly, the chest, but it can be anywhere, any of those points. But as long as you just settle on one point and say, okay, I'm going to focus here today. And so keep going back to that breath again and again and again. And that's correct. No matter how many times your mind wanders away, that's totally correct.
Yeah, that's terrific. Yeah, you're disciplining the mind, if you will. I mean, for me, it's like focusing on watching paint dry. You know, but I've seen the focus. I've seen, you know, transcendental meditation where there's a candle. Like, I've seen different parts where you're focusing literally on something, and that extreme focus on the something sort of releases you from whatever, the chaos, right?
Yes, 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 exactly. And some people have trouble closing their eyes, and so they can focus on one point. It can be the candle, it can be a symbol or whatever the person chooses. But that's exactly right. When you have something to focus on, it's using that as an anchor point to always come back to. But the greatest thing I can offer is that you just be kind to yourself in this approach and recognize that every single time you sit, it's going to be a different journey. And so we've got to be real careful not to compare or to want to grasp something from another experience that we've had. And
Right.
as humans, we like to do this. If we've had this, what we might consider a profound spiritual experience in one session, it's so easy to go, oh, I'm going to meditate because I want that again.
Right.
That's the trick, is just to show up with an open heart and mind and just be still. And whatever happens in that session.
Interesting. I had the observation once when I was struggling with meditation. I eventually went to chanting because I found that if the focus is a repeating mantra, I sort of put myself in a trance. And I have to have this. I mean, you're not surprised. I'm in a talk show. Like, I have to have this going to calm down.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, do you feel that there's any significant outcome difference from quiet versus,
Yeah.
either visual or sound?
It's interesting you say that now, because we're currently I'm running through a little program called Sonic Meditation, where we're doing vowel sounds, whether it be om, e, ah, chanting as such, and then we move into the silence. And the beautiful thing is with the chanting, which is you can just do 15 minutes of chanting if the stillness, if the silent meditation is a struggle, because what happens is when we do that chanting or the humming, the sound, we can't think thoughts. It eliminates the thoughts. And so all we're doing is we almost move into that beautiful vibrational state and become the vibration, if you like. And so what we're doing now with this sonic meditation, when we're doing like 10 minutes of chanting and then moving into stillness, the amazing thing is we've already stimulated our vagus nerve, bringing us into that relaxation response. So we're moving into the stillness in this beautiful state, already deeply relaxed. And so the thoughts have already begun to quieten down. So that's a wonderful thing you can try, is just doing 5 or 10 minutes of the chanting, then move into 5 minutes of stillness or 10 minutes. And yeah, I think you'll enjoy it.
That's a great point. I would say I experienced that after chanting, I felt like being still. I felt like it. I authentically felt like it. Also with yoga, if I did yoga, after yoga, I authentically felt like being still. And I'm not a still guy. You'll see my camera bouncing. I can't keep still. So it's a real miracle right there.
Yeah.
It's interesting how it brings you into that space.
Yeah. The vibrations, right?
Yeah. I remember as a child, I would spend hours just staring out the window and not thinking anything. And I feel like I might have been meditating, not knowing it.
You sound like me.
Yeah, I would just be like this, and I was like, I wasn't thinking of anything. I wasn't thinking of anything. I remember I wasn't thinking of anything. So, I definitely feel like I naturally fell in that state at times, and then adulthood came, and that was over. Yeah. So,
Who knows? I think that would have possibly been a form of meditation.
yeah.
I always used to get on my report card, Jason is easily distracted. Jason doesn't apply himself. Jason is not focused. But I was focusing on other things.
Right.
Schoolwork was less important for me. It was other stuff that was much more exciting out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. I had the same remarks. My name was always on the board. My name was permanently in there with check marks next to it. Tell us how your own personal practice of meditation has changed, and what is your current practice of meditation?
So my current practice is definitely I'm using now the 30 minutes of meditation, silent meditation, but sometimes the tonal resonance as well beforehand. But also, I like to go to sleep at nighttime meditating before sleeping, actually, to quieten the mind down. That's really important for me. So I'd say over the last few months, it's changed. My life has changed, and it's definitely I'm seeing the value of consistency. That is what is important, and that is what I don't want to let go of now. I don't want to. I don't need to go. I'm not saying it fixes everything instantly. It doesn't, but it's putting me in a better place to be still and to be able to handle these crazy changes that go on in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I liken it to, putting the baby down every night at the same time to build emotional, security in the child and the infant. If your soul can look forward to it, it just calms so much other stuff down in your life, because you have that go-to.
Exactly. Even if it's that one time you just keep going to that session or that practice, whatever that may be, even if it is the yoga or it doesn't matter what it is, but if you can have that something to come back to, that anchor point, yeah.
Do you have any reflection? You were mentioning earlier that you got this anger came up, that came up when you were being consistent with yourself. In hindsight, do you have a theory about what that was?
I remember, in fact, I remember at a workplace, I got sent to an anger management course. That's how bad I was. I wasn't fighting or anything, but just would raise my voice and it brought up lots of stuff. I think it was a total a confusion of where I fitted in society and the world. Even as a child, I felt like I loved all people, but I felt like I never fitted in. And I want to tell you something. Possibly this is because there's something that happened in my childhood at a school, very early years. And I remember I was playing with a group of people that were 1 year younger than me. I was in like first class. They were in kindergarten because the guys in my year were playing football. And so they were all around playing football. I never wanted to play football. I wanted to lead something. I was always interested in music, always interested in wanting to form a community. And a teacher come up to me and she said, Jason, you've got to stop this. You've got to stop playing with these people younger than you, and you've got to go and play football with the guys your age. So what happened was this created this rift inside of me. I didn't want to play football. I wasn't allowed to be with these young people, which were only 1 year younger, which is not much at all when we look at it. It's nothing. And so what happened then, I sat on my own for years in school because I felt like I was told not to do that. Didn't want to do that. And so when I think about it, possibly this could have had something inside of me, this rebellious state I went through that said, now I do what the hell I want. Maybe that's something to do with it. I don't know for sure, but anyway, it's
interesting.
Gone now. I'm okay. Yeah.
Astrology gives us an idea of what consciousness are working on at what time. And I recall that when I was working on the inner child consciousness, I made myself go on play dates, with myself. This just came from logic and other light workers. And every time I went on that play date, I was so angry about going to play. And my walk away was my child was so angry for abandoning me, for me abandoning it. And so it was just throwing a hissy fit that, oh, fine, after 20 years you listen, kind of. That was my walk away. But I just related to your story there in that way. And,
oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds, that resonates with me.
Well, if you gave up all of that, you gave up what your heart wanted to make the teachers happy, that technically is abandonment, right? Of your heart. So it's interesting. But not always so, because you went into music and theater, right? Things that your heart liked. How did music and theater help, guide your meditations?
Well, I've lived with music all my life. My parents were both musicians, professional
Awesome.
musicians for their
Wow.
entire life. So I was surrounded by bands and music all my life. I'd come home to rehearsals, and there was so much there just all the time. So I felt a lot with music. And then I moved into singing, and absolute freedom of expression. It was a place where I could totally express who I was. And so I did all this training, and then I moved into acting and speech. The speech was huge in acting. We were given speech lessons every single week, and something that, if you would have heard my voice 30 years ago, the way I spoke was real Australian accent like this, g'day mate, how you going? That's how I spoke. It was just all like this, really rough around the edges. And and then when I went to these speech classes, sometimes I'd be very frustrated. I'm like, how do you talk like that? How do you say, play instead of play, And so, but here's the beautiful thing. All of that speech training literally helped me to create, when I moved over into guided meditations, more of a neutral accent. So it's not fully Australian. It's not UK. It's just this moving more into a bit of a neutral accent. And so that gift of all those years of training has led me to being able to create these wonderful meditations. So eventually it's kind of paid off. But
I feel it's really relevant, honestly. I mean, for instance, I have a brand that sells, horoscopes. So I haven't touched meditation, because, that tone of voice, for me, makes it or breaks a lot of guided meditation. I'm judging the voice. It doesn't feel comfortable. So it sounds like that gave you a range of your voice. And from there, you were able to discover that perfect, touch or resonance.
I think so. Yeah. Yes. And I think so, and I will tell you, sometimes in my acting, I was told that this is really interesting, because I was told that, you're boring. Your voice is still, you need to use more of your range. You've got a very boring voice. And I was told that by some actors, and to the point where they didn't even want to work with me. Isn't it funny how now I'm putting people to sleep?
Right. For a living.
For a living.
Yeah. I think it's wonderful. Yeah.
So
well, it
I
turned out
found
to be your greatest asset. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Perhaps maybe that determined you even further, What made you want to start a YouTube channel in 2012? I mean, that seems like a huge departure from the path you were on, walking around, sacred lands, watching high vibration leaders,
Well, what had happened was I'd started a website to sell relaxation music. It was called Relax Me Online. That was the little business, and it was to sell those download MP3s. And this was kind of before iTunes and before all that come out, become really popular anyway. And so a friend said to me, why don't you put samples up on YouTube, because that helps you with SEO to get customers and build your website presence. I thought, okay, I'll do that. So what happened was I spent about six months doing that, and then I did it, and then the views were like a video would be lucky to see one or two people at a time, for months. And I thought, this is a waste of time. Like, this is not getting anywhere. So I let it all go. I still worked on my website, but let the whole YouTube thing go. And then it wasn't until about 6 months later that I got this an email that said, we can help you get more subscribers, and we can help you earn more money. And I'm thinking, earn more money on YouTube? What are they talking about? You can't earn money from YouTube. And what happened was, so I signed up with this company, and then subscribers started to come in faster and faster and faster. And it was only for one particular relaxation track, actually. And it literally began to explode with just this one video. And then I thought to myself, and I was beginning to earn $250 a month. And I thought, wow, I'm doing nothing and I'm earning $250 a month. So I thought, what if I add more videos now? And
Yeah.
so of course I added my little entrepreneur hat come out and I started to add more videos. And then within 3 months, the whole thing, I also caught the wave of meditation at the time. Meditation, mindfulness was just starting to come in. And so it just started to go like that. And so that was the crossover to YouTube.
What do you feel makes yours so popular? I mean, you have 3 million subscribers. There's so many guided meditation things out there in the world. It seems like everyone feels like I mean, even as a business owner myself, I'm like, I've got to have guided meditations. Like almost like I have to, right? But yours resonate with so many. What do you feel about it?
I would say, well, number one, there's a bit of a problem that I'm solving, and that is doing sleep meditation. So,
Okay.
if you can help solve a person's problem, that's 3/4 of the battle.
Yeah.
So I think, and it wasn't a sleep channel initially. It was I was doing a cross section of meditations and sounds and music sounds, and I experimented a lot. But when I moved into sleep, I started to read the comments and I realized that people want them for sleep. So I started to go more into what people wanted. So I guess just following that pathway of finding out, if people feel like they want this, then offer it to them. And the combination of the music and my voice worked. And I thought, let's just keep going. And now, of course, I have a beautiful, a team of people that are very, very good at their craft. For everyone from writers now to musicians to producers to video editors. And so I'm very blessed to have a team that helped me out no end. So that helps.
So do you fly in as this, the wacky Steve Jobs eating an orange to the team and like, I want something that makes people, how does it work as far as how you create and with a team?
So we meet with the team and we all meet, we have creative meetings and we find out what people want, what's working, what's not working. And then we begin to narrow it down into areas of different sections of what's working. And then we hand it over. It starts with me with a briefing. I begin to brief around the meditation. That briefing is now sent off to the writer. Also the briefing, the artist looks at the briefing as well. He adds what he thinks could work. So it's this beautiful group approach now of like literally of 6 people per meditation. And we all work together now. And this has only been just happening in the last, I'd say 6 months. We've been working as a collaborative unit, and it's really working well.
You and I have so many parallels. It's interesting. I've been working more collaborative. I was a solo artist for the first 17 years. And then suddenly I'm collaborative. And it's interesting that we have the same timing of things. How do you approach, music for sleep? Do you literally write boring music? Like, what do you versus rejuvenation, for instance, did you study the waveforms? Is it something coming intuitively?
Well, initially it was all up to me when I first started because it was sort of intuitively and what I felt was awakening. And also I was using different frequencies for different things. So if it was for healing, I would use a different frequency than for sleep. And then for study, it'd be all different frequencies. However, now I am blessed to have this amazing, beautiful music producer. And she's a musician, a very talented musician producer herself. So she works closely now with the musicians that we have and is coming up with the briefings for the musicians. And some of that involves the frequency music. So yeah, we have a team working on all of that as well.
Where do ideas come from for new meditations and things like that?
That's a good question. Sometimes that can be really difficult because after doing it for so many years, always wanting to find something new ideas, especially where to set the meditations, because I'm so much I've set them at beaches and forests and deserts, and so sometimes I go to ChatGPT and I say, look, help me come up with different locations. And I mean, and I'd say to it, like, think outside the box. Please don't give me a typical beach or tropical island, or please help me. And guess what? ChatGPT helps me come up with crazy locations, and I'm so thankful for that. And some might say that takes away from the creativity. Well, I actually don't think it does, because what happens is when it gives me a tiny piece of information, I take that and then it explodes my mind, because I'm like, wow, what can happen here? So it's just taking that tiny piece of information that you possibly didn't think of before and turning that into a meditation. And that's where we're at right now. I'm loving that.
Yeah, I think it's cool.
I'm loving it. Yeah.
The one thing I like about AI, and I think it's the only thing I like at the moment, which is that it's literally thought of everything, right? So we can't think of everything. It's read everything. It's got everything digest. So, whenever I bring a product, I bring stuff to ChatGPT, and I already have like 10 things I've thought of, and then it brings up things I hadn't thought of. But then I apply my talent to those ideas. And it sounds like you're doing the same thing. It's very thorough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it just helps. We can use it to expand our mind rather than limit the mind. And that's up to each individual.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I agree. Although I still have argument that it's based on all of our mistakes in the past. So there's a philosophical question there about how smart it really is. Like if it's studying from our past. How about when you make meditations between children and adults and teens? How do you go into that? What's your mind frame, or what is your vibrational frame of mind?
Well, I don't do that anymore now. We don't do teen meditations and children's meditations. However, that was a big part of what I did initially. In fact, I created a CD called I Believe in Me, Meditation and Affirmations for Children. And I guess for me, how I did that was tapping into my inner child and taking my mind to what excited me as a child, and just going where I want to go as a kid, to explore and have fun. And so that's how I would come up with these ideas for children. Interesting enough, I found teens. I found that more difficult. And I wonder if it's because I had difficulty in growing up in my teens. I'm not quite sure, but I struggled with that. And I created some affirmations for teens and a couple of meditations, but it kind of wasn't my forte. I didn't feel called to move there. I almost didn't feel qualified for some reason to work in that space. It's just, yeah.
It's a weird space. I mean, it's a transitional time. There's nothing is a constant, and you're trying to apply a constant, and and there's a tendency to rebel against anything. So you're basically just just because you ask them to change or do something. This comes from a father routine. So or not anymore, but it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about affirmations? I'm curious about, first of all, your theory about affirmations, if they work or don't work, and why they work. Just curious. And then how do you incorporate them in your meditations, and why do you incorporate them in your meditations?
So I've been on and off with affirmations for a long, long time. But I will tell you that they really helped me at a time in need when I really needed them, and literally helped to change my life. There's two instances. One where when I was first diagnosed with HIV, I hated myself. I truly despised myself. I could barely look at myself in the mirror. And I remember doing something about that. And I thought, I can't live like this, just continually this hatred towards myself. So I put up this sign on the bathroom mirror: I am beautiful inside and out. And I left it there. And I will tell you, when I first started that, people say, "Oh, you don't believe affirmations, so they don't work." And well, I put them up there on that bathroom mirror, and I'd have trouble looking at it sometimes. Sometimes I would just glance at it, But what happened over time, I got more and more comfortable. And so I'd find myself just brushing my teeth and reading it, just looking at it and just sort of reading it. And I'm telling you, after it helped me to begin to truly embrace that and stop and really recognize that I am beautiful inside and out. And also what I did when I was first diagnosed HIV positive, every time I'd go to the doctors, they would paint this picture of doom and gloom and tell me all the horrible things. And I found it, I would go in there with spirits up here. By the time I left, I would be right down at the bottom again. And so I started to think, what am I going to do to stop this? Because this is not good. So I changed to HIV from a human immunodeficiency virus to here in vitality. I am living here in vitality. And I would go to the beach walking my dogs at the time, and I'd see the sun come up, and I would say that to myself. I'm living here in vitality. My goodness, this is beautiful. So these affirmations were the greatest help to lift me up and lift me out of all this depression and anxiety and because I began to internalize them, to really, really live them. And that was only two. I'm only talking two affirmations there. So I wasn't flooding my mind constantly with them. There were just two there, and I began to use them literally daily. And that's what changed my life.
You know, your experience with HIV doctors we have here in the United States all the time, it feels like they're constantly affirming to us that we're going to die, that we're sick, that we need medicine. Like we're constantly being affirmed. We're being brainwashed. And, you know, the astrology aspect has taught me that, you know, if the mind repeats it long enough, the mind makes it true. So I think there's just a scientific part of affirmations. The repetition alone, the mind just starts to, you know, the neural networks just start to organize around that. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember the counselor even told me upon diagnosis, she says, "Oh, don't worry." She said at that time, she said, "Don't worry." She said, "People are living to 10 years now." So she said, "You've got a bit of time."
And I say that so nonchalantly. I know.
And I will never forget that, because that would terrify me, because then I thought, oh my goodness, 10 years, I'm not going to make 50, I'm not going to make 40, whatever the years were. And I thought, oh my goodness. So I literally started to kind of count down the days. It was awful. No more.
Wow.
No more.
Yeah. I found myself combative when they did use language on me. I start arguing. I'm not a very good patient. My bedside manners are horrible. I have to say. You know, you talked about nature bringing in peace, and as a child recognizing that. I wondered if you did you recognize that peace? Did it seem familiar to you when you experienced it as a child? That was just a personal curiosity I had.
I think so. I think so. I
Yeah.
must have, because I almost kept returning to that. I kept wanting to find that space, to be in that space. And I can even remember putting myself in my bedroom, and I loved being in my bedroom, just locking myself away and just watching the rain fall on the window and just watching the rain trickle down. And I remember just so much peace, getting so much peace from that. So yes, I think there was some sort of recognition of almost like I'd experienced it before and was returning to that, coming home to that.
Yeah. Either maybe a past life of spirituality, or just maybe even what we call heaven, just, you know, some memory coming in. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And so you've incorporated some forms of nature into your meditations as a result. I mean, just sort of inspire the same.
Yeah, lots of times. I've had lots of times of meditations in the desert, meditations with rainfall, because I love also walking through forests. So I've had, a lot of times just using those spaces during the visualizations that we create.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go to, I would go to a rainstorm YouTube video. It's got 2 billion views.
Yeah.
People are listening to rain every night. You know, it's like it's so simple. Nature had
Beautiful.
it. Humans tried to
That's exactly,
yeah, try to replicate it,
exactly.
but the truth is that nature had it from all along. So
Yeah.
we've been talking about your first channel. I do want to have a moment to talk about your second channel as well, Relax and
Mhm.
Rejuvenate. How does that separate from your first channel? First of all, just the difference, so people know checking you out.
Yeah, Relax and Rejuvenate is now just the music alone, no
Oh,
guided meditations,
I see.
and also some frequency music. You see,
Mm,
when we first started the Jason Stevenson meditation channel, that was a combination of music and voice. But here's what happened to that. Sometimes people would go to my channel expecting just the music, and then they would hear my voice and they'd go, oh man, I didn't sign up for this. Where did that voice come from? I don't want that. And so unsubscribe. And so what we realized was that, hey, we better make this clear. They either want my voice or they don't want my voice, but we can create another channel where we have just the relaxation music. So when they come there, they will not hear my voice.
right.
And so when they come to the meditation channel now, every Monday, we have the voice. It's the voice and the music. It's a combination. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. Why do you have to ruin it with that voice? Meanwhile, the other voice
Oh,
is like 10 times more viewers. I know it's interesting. One of the hard part about being a YouTuber is you always are not satisfying several people. Like no matter how hard you put into it or whatever, some people find it offensive. No matter what you do, some people find it offensive, and they're going to unsubscribe if you don't change. I know it's really it's a
I
hard
used to take that, like years ago, I used to take that personally,
yeah
for a while, and I'd be so offended, and I'm like, oh my goodness, oh, it's not doing good enough. I'll have to change, and eventually you get to a point where you have to accept that not everyone's going to like your work, and that's okay.
right
You can't please everyone. It's not going to happen that way.
right.
So I've accepted that now. Yeah, and it's all good. It's okay now.
Yeah, it takes a while. Like it takes a while to disarm that. Because quite often, I mean, being an astrologer, I found that a lot of the comments were triggering points that I was working on astrologically. So I was like, oh, this universe is screwing with
I
me.
bet.
They sent my show to this person that represents this side of my. It's interesting how it gets that way.
Oh, I
Um,
bet. Mm.
yeah. So, I want to kind of maybe wrap up with this a point because I think it's just so profound, and that has to do with prison rehab. Your work has been accepted in prisons in Australia, from what I understand, for rehabilitation. That's pretty powerful.
Well,
How did that
yeah.
happen, and what's been the impact? What have you seen as a result?
Well, I've got to tell you, it actually started in the USA. The
Really?
USA, yeah, the USA was the first. I think it was called the Mule State Prison in California. They were the
Mm,
first ones to reach out to me, and they said they wanted to use the meditations to help prisoners to sleep, to relax and sleep. And so, of course, I said, absolutely, go ahead and use that. You have my permission. So then they started, and then there was another women's prison in the USA that they contacted me, and they started, and then there was a prison in Australia, and they began one of the main prisons here in over in Sydney. So they began to use them as well, and I'd heard back from the Mule State Prison. Of course, I didn't hear too much, but I heard that they were very grateful of the sounds. But yeah, they didn't sort of elaborate much on that at all. But I was just thrilled to hear that my work was helping prisoners,
yes.
because when they're put on the bottom of the pile, there's sort of might not be much left in their life, and it's also giving them something. And maybe some of my meditations tap into spirituality, and maybe it's just giving them something else. So I was very grateful for that. Yeah, really
Yeah.
grateful.
And now, before a prison brawl, they all meditate. Just to be clear. Oh, they're meditating. Knock it down. That's funny. Um, so looking back on your journey, because I think, a lot of people may roll their eyes when they hear the word meditation. What advice would you offer to someone who is just starting to explore meditation and spirituality? What would be your advice to the newbie?
I think to start with, I would probably say a guided meditation would be better to start with, because then it's a little easier to focus on the voice and to so that voice keeps calling you back. So you're using that voice as an anchor, and they're specifically telling you sometimes to breathe in and release, breathe in and release. I think that's a great way to start. I would also suggest, on top of that, if you could just get moments, 5 minutes at a time, of just sitting in silence. And sorry for my dog barking there.
He's like, what's this silence thing you're talking about?
Yeah, I'll have to shut that. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just 5 minutes of silent meditation is really good too. And using that breath as an anchor point. Consecutively. See if you can do it even for 7 days. Do it for 7 days and tell me, how does that feel after 7 days? See if there's any minuscule changes, because I'd be assured there might be.
I agree. And I'll say also, what I've discovered is, if you set aside time for 7 days and then the 8th day there's a block, the universe will remove the block and keep the time for you. Like, if you make the time, the universe starts making the time for you. And you're like, well, now I have to meditate.
Yeah.
Because Susie canceled. So now so it's interesting how that happens too, this dynamic with the universe and peace. So great work. It's wonderful having you on, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for
lovely
doing
to be here.
I don't know if you have the time, but we'd love like a little mini guided meditation if you were willing to.
Let's do one. Let's do one.
Okay.
Yeah, why not?
Thank you.
So, and if my dog barks, use that as a part of the meditation process. You don't have to try and get it. If you get aggravated by that, I'll say just be aware of that aggravation and be kind to yourself, and then just continue to listen. So just closing your eyes for a moment and sitting with your back as straight as possible, but not held so it's rigid, just like this, a beautiful, majestic mountain just being. And begin just by taking in some breaths in through the nose and release through the mouth. And we'll do a few of these. One more breath. And release. And returning your breath just to a comfortable rhythm, whatever's comfortable for you. Just finding that natural pace. And recognizing that anytime your mind wanders, it's a simple process just to acknowledge the thought. You don't have to follow where it leads, but just acknowledge it, and then return your breath to focusing on that entrance and exit point of breathing in and out through your nose. So we're going to use that as our anchor point, our home point, if you like. So just being there, bringing yourself into this present moment. And as we do this and you keep breathing, I'd like you to visualize from the top of your head, the crown of your head, as it begins to open, a golden light begins to pour down through your head. And as it pours down, it begins to reach areas of your head space, and it begins to soften your mind, your forehead, the back area of your head, your jaw area. This golden light continues to go down, spilling down into your neck, softening, releasing, into your heart space, traveling down through both shoulders and all the way down to your hands and your very fingertips. Breathing, even breathing into this area, breathing into your fingertips, seeing this golden light as it touches every part of your body, begins to relax, let go, release. Continues to travel down your lower back, your stomach, into your pelvis, your thighs. The light continues to soften and release your knees, your calf muscles, all the way down to your feet, the very tips of your toes. Your entire body now is held, embraced in this golden light, and is in the process of letting go, healing, rejuvenated. Just be here for a few moments, breathing. And as I speak these affirmations, just mentally repeat them to yourself. I am worthy of love, joy, and abundance. I am filled with positivity. I am blessed with everything that is available in my life right now. Love spills within me and without. I am enough. I am worthy. I am beautiful. And just taking in a few deep breaths now, in through the nose and release through the mouth. Another one. And coming back, moving your fingers and toes, and opening your eyes when you're ready, and welcoming home. Welcome back home.
That was beautiful. I fell asleep. No, okay. No, I could see. I did recognize, like, I was lured, like I was wanting to be pulled, but I also feel like it's pulling me into my subconscious. I mean, it's pulling me into the things that I ignore. Yeah, but you have a great voice for it too.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's very calming and warm too. There's a warmth there.
Thanks, Christopher. Yeah.
Makes it safe. Makes it feel very safe. Yeah.
That's
So
lovely
wow.
to hear that.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, clearly you're having a great impact, and lucky for you, the world becomes more and more chaotic. So business is booming.
Oh, I'd like to think maybe if enough of us do this work, that we'll help to ease that chaos.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You get enough
Yeah.
calm people walking
Yeah.
around the planet, you start to feel self-conscious for not being calm. Like the same things that provoke, the other will work in reverse. Yeah, I agree. Much like you walking around with those teachers.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. It can't help but just begin to spill over, right, and rub off on you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And could I just say a quick thank you? I've been reading occasionally the messages, and so I just want to say a quick thank you to the people that have commented. Yeah, thank you.
Oh,
Appreciate it.
they like you. We have a wonderful group of people too, so
Looks like it. Yeah.
yeah, when we find our tribe, we find someone that resonates. It's such a treat. So
It's beautiful.
thank you. Well, thank you for your work. Thank you for coming on the show, and perhaps we can see you again for other reasons. And I
Yeah.
hope you have a wonderful new year, sir.
Thank you very much, Christopher. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure to be with you here today. So thanks so kindly.
Thank you, Jason. It's a pleasure. I'll see you next time.
See you for sure. Bye-bye.
Stay backstage, Jason. Yeah, I'm supposed to say that, but I'm so tranquil after the meditation. I forgot what I'm here doing. What are we doing again? Oh, that's right. Namaste Today live. Just our promotions. We're grateful for everyone who's come on board, and grateful to our producers who find these wonderful pieces of content and people and light workers around the world. One of the things that we are doing, at Serious Joy as a company is a project with Scott Cruz. It's called LOL Leading Out Loud, where psychic medium and astrologer get together and talk about things every week. We just covered the apocalypse yesterday, and we mean that in a fun way. But we had guest star David Palmer on, who's a Leo King, who's a historian expert with astrology. And it's a great episode if you want to talk, planets and stuff and see some of the magic of what happens every time Pluto's in this place and whatnot. So you can go to the Leading Out Loud podcast by going to leadingoutloud.com and take a listen, see what you think. I think these kind of philosophical shows are going to be popping up everywhere. We also want to announce that we have our coming to the public. We have our Mega Monthlies and Tag Team Astrology with Robbie Hunt and myself. Robbie and I are doing a duo podcast now, and it's really kind of nice because we're both on camera, and it's like a talk show about each of the signs. It's evolving into a little talk show. If anything, they're too long. I mean, because we just want to gab all day about these signs and what's going on with them. It's just modern gossip of spirituality. But these are the Zodiac Mega Monthly show is coming out next Wednesday. That's where we actually record live what you'll see in September. What you'll see in Sagittarius. Associated the S's there. And we'll give our predictions for Sagittarius, and then we give our predictions for Capricorn the next month. So we focus it not on the calendar, we focus it on the astrology, and we go back and forth, and we have different insights to say. It goes live. If you sign up for Serious Joy, it goes live at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And it's in what we call our live theater, where we have all of our live shows go live. The other thing I want to say is, you know what? You have an opportunity to try Serious Joy for a very low price. We are holding now our White Light Friday sale. So we all know about Black Friday. We're going to do a White Light Friday on the same day. We're going to bring in some light in that dark day. And what we're going to do is offer Serious Joy for $3.99 a month for 2 consecutive months. So, Serious Joy, Serious Joy does this to allow people to come in and try, as long as they can. And so what we decided to do is end this year or start the next year with the ability to just try us for 2 months and see for yourself. Take a good taste of what we have to offer. We have a lot of cool things coming in the pipeline in addition to what we already do. We have a daily podcast of astrology. We have a mini scope that tells you just a real quick mini. We have the weather that happens every day. We have Sound Drop with Kristen Ryder, which is basically vibrational music through sound bowls, getting you into a meditative state. We want to be a spiritual life coaching service that's your spiritual companion. We want to sort of be your resource. And we are happy to announce, and this sounds kind of maybe interesting, but coming soon, we have the voice of Mary Magdalene lecturing on Serious Joy. And you may wonder, how does that happen? Well, it happens through a nice lady named Krista Marie. She is a full-on channel, and she has the ability to channel Mary Magdalene. And Mary Magdalene is fully aware that she's channeling for Serious Joy. So it's quite interesting. Those will start on the first degree of Sagittarius right after the White Light sale. So give it a try. Have you ever tried Serious Joy? We're talking about $7 over 2 months, and see what happens yourself. Just see for yourself. You have to try to see and believe. Now that said, sharing is caring. The greatest thing you can do for us, it just shares with your friends and family. If you're of like mind and like vibe, they might like it too. Every time I have a reading, I ask, how'd you find us? And it's always this friend, this person. Always this person showed me. Very rarely was it an ad or a YouTube suggestion. Very rarely. It was always someone that cared about them. So we've made an active point in our marketing to ask you, if you care, please share. It's how we grow organically and how we grow spiritually. We appreciate it because we don't have a big advertising budget at Serious Joy. We've been growing organically for 8 or 9 years now. I'll be in 9th year next year. And, we're letting it go at the pace of God. Also, our Facebook group, you can go and be a part of. Believe it or not, there is some light on Facebook. It's seriousjoy.club. This is where anyone can join, as long as you're respectful and don't talk politics and are compassionate when you post things. I mean, those are our only rules. But you can advertise your spiritual business there if you'd like and tell people about you. And some people do daily stuff there. It's a spiritual, swap meet, basically, where we're all sort of showing up and bringing our gifts. I love that we do this. And I feel like it's a great service. You'll notice Serious Joy has its things that it charges for, and Serious Joy has its things it doesn't charge for, because our mission is to help, period. That's our mission. Also, if you'd like to follow us on our other platforms or anywhere else we're posting, you can go to seriousjoy.social. You'll be taken to our LinkedIn tree and all the links and different things like that. And some people like to listen instead of watch. There's a lot of discovery that watching, watching my hair or watching my shirt or something, and you're not paying attention to the content. Sometimes listening is the best way to pay attention, and that's with our audio podcast. So you can find the audio-only version of this show on Spotify, Stitcher, and Apple Podcasts. I want to say a special thanks to our producer, Diane DeStefano. She makes this show great. We also are very grateful for Nina Kay. She's no longer with us. We wish her well on her journey. She did a wonderful job for us, and she's growing fast. So you can't keep the good ones too fast, the talented ones, too long. I want to say thanks to our Multiverse Master Director, Adam Turner. He's in 5 dimensions at once. And our teaching staff at SeriousJoy.com, Robbie Hunt, Christian Ryder. We have Gwen English and Daiki Okamoto. And soon to be Krista Marie, channeling Mary Magdalene. Also, we want to say special thanks to our special friends. We have people who come in the chat every week and make it special for us. Thanks, Iggy. Thanks, Christine Kelly. Thanks, Sydney, Neptune Girl. Daryl, I saw you. Thank you, brother. You're a blessing. Michelle Camper, Michelle Bell, Erica, Experimental Elemental. I'd love to know your first name one day. Lori Ship, Nikki Anderson, Princess Coffee Bean, Jill Louise, Margot Malia. You're a fixture here. And Sydney is now moderating, if you didn't notice. So things happen here for a reason. All right, friends, we're so grateful to be with you every week, and we look forward to what's ahead. I hope you have a wonderful time this week, kind of processing the full moon, and you start to see your multiverse unfold. Until then, I love you. Love be.